welcome back to the SPL playoffs. Our first match of the day and our first best of 5 now wrapped up. We move into our second match of the day, which will be the Jade Dragons and the Eldritch Hounds, still fighting here on the winner's side bracket in a best of 5. We can take a look at the bracket to see how the entirety of our weekend is going to pan out. Because remember, it's 4 days of play, best of 5s every single day, 2 of them to be exact throughout those ones, so make sure that you are tuning in to all of our matchups there. Guild of Gladiators found their first win with a 3-1 to start the day out, and now we move into the Jade Dragons and the Eldritch Hounds. Winner of that Gladiators match, that being the Glads, now going to face off the Leviathans in that next matchup for themselves, and then the winner of this set will face off against the Camelot Kings to see who will be able to continue moving on that winner side bracket. Those 2 matches will be taking place tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, so congrats to the Gladiators for that first big win. But now we can jump into our second set here, Gormizer. It is the Jade Dragons and the Eldritch Hounds facing off. One team that, at least at the very last week, was able to get themselves a nice little win there. The Jade Dragons finding success over the Leviathan. Still ended up notching 3rd seed just because of the head-to-head, the plus-minuses and whatnot for them, but still ending their season on a win. Meanwhile, Eldritch Hounds ending on a bit of a tough loss up against the Styx Fairmen in their final week.
Yeah, and it's one that, you know, I think that they wish maybe they could have, for seeding purposes, gotten. But at the end of the day, I feel like what we've seen out of the Hounds, if you ignore that set, although admittedly those 2 games were actually pretty close as well. But if you look at what the Hounds have been able to do over the last few weeks, I think that they honestly have hit the scene a lot harder and a lot faster than a lot of teams and a lot of people would expect jumping into the SPL, right? I think that this is a team that has done a lot of work. I think they kind of figured themselves out. It usually takes a little bit longer in the SPL before we've gotten to see that kind of solidification. But instead, what we got was a really good performance from the Hounds, a really good set from the Hounds, and every single week they came in. And even if some of them go 3, which I was actually looking at it the last time they went against the Dragons, it did go 3. They were still really, really solid games, 1 and 3 for them when they won it.
Yeah, it's been a pretty impressive performance by the Eldritch Hounds to start their new season off in the SPL. And we've had a moment to now sit down and talk with the mid laner, BennyQ, staying by for our pregame interview.
I got BennyQ with me. BennyQ, are you the mid laner for the Eldritch Hounds?
I'd hope so.
Good. Glad we've established your credibility as we head into this interview. Otherwise, you know, who knows how to take it seriously. Ben, we've had a couple weeks of downtime. Do you feel like the mid lane meta has changed up all that much in the last couple weeks? Couple updates rolling through, or are we expecting more of the same from the end of the phase?
Yeah, the good mages are still good.
Is that Merlin? I know.
Yeah.
Because you've told me you would play Merlin every single game, always, if possible, right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
If you could only play one god forever and always, would it be Merlin?
Yeah. Big gap, Merlin.
So is well, we saw a little Merlin in our previous set. You up against Dardez. Dardez has a bit of a unique god pool. Is that something you and your team feel like you're prepared to handle?
Yeah, I feel like for the last 2 years, it's like kind of always have to think about that. He has like these few picks that he's just really good on and makes draft kind of difficult.
Chel? Yes? No? Maybe? Maybe not for you guys. In general, do you think competitively, you think Chel is?
I don't think so.
You're not on board with the blind?
Nah. Well, if you're hitting it more than once a game, maybe.
Well, and it's you. So
Yeah.
what is that? Once a game, 0 times? On it or off it?
Maybe 2, actually.
Maybe once or twice a game. Overall, look, you guys ended your phase on a bit of a hot streak. It's all chaos over in the order side. I think we talked to your team a lot. Surpassed expectations, but now your expectations are set on this team moving forward. Going up against the Jade Dragons, who have struggled a bit, how do you feel like your play style matches into them specifically?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, fair enough. I imagine you'll favor yourself in this matchup.
Yeah,
though.
I'm pretty confident.
Okay, understood. BennyQ, I think the mid laner for the Eldritch Hounds. Prep for the first matchup. Best of luck, and we'll go back to the desk.
That's right. The Eldritch Hounds are going to have to square off up against the Jade Dragons. A little bit of fun with the interview, talking to BennyQ. When we saw a load of Chel earlier today, had kind of mixed performance, maybe some mixed thoughts through it. A very early struggle. Maybe that was just given the matchup that it had there. And we'll see if maybe that does get kind of picked up as the day goes through there. But I think right to maybe kind of bring up here, Gormizer, the god pool of Dardez is not traditional from a lot of the other mid laners in the league, where most of them are sticking to the standards. You know, your Merlins, you throw your Martichoras in there if you want to get one of the Hunters. You throw some of those other top mages like the Baba Yaga. But then you have Dardez, and he's just doing whatever he wants to. Things like Hera typically pop in. Discordia also kind of comes to mind when I think of this player. So maybe it does make the drafts a little bit more difficult against the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, and I think wholeheartedly so. I mean, even the last time I was just looking at it, like the last game they played against the Dragons, they only matched up against them once because it was cross-division. 3 games, and the last game, Dardez plays AMC, and it's like, who else is playing AMC? They've only played it twice so far, but then, like you said, you start looking at it, and you go, okay, well, there was also Agni picks, and Tiamat picks, and Hera picks, and Morrigan Le Fay picks, and I'm not even halfway through the rest of the Dragons list when you're getting there. So it just feels like mid lane has so much stacked behind it that you've got to worry about. And the problem is if you're worried about those so heavily, you kind of let the others slip through, right? You let LASBRA get on something that he's really good at. You let Mike get on something he can control at. So I feel like this team, both the Dragons and the Hounds, have something interesting going for them. The Hounds in the sense that they have been very flexible, I think, all year and kind of showcased that. The Dragons have showcased flexibility, but the consistency of that is what you're really missing out on. Standings-wise, I want to say, 3-7, something like that. Was not glamorous for the Dragons this entire year. 9 total wins in terms of games, 16 total losses. So not really the most successful run for them. A couple of picks that really stand out that I think are going to overlap here between these two teams. But the biggest thing for me today is just to see a Dragons team that is capable, right? I mean, I think we've seen a lot of their high end. I just need to see it more. I feel like we've seen them push games to 53 minutes. We've seen them struggle sometimes with sieges. We've seen them do a lot of these things that are like, okay, you're holding on, you're maybe staying competitive, but like, you're not winning. So change that part, right? And it's so much easier. Like from where I'm sitting, it's very easy to just say that as compared to actually having to enact it. But then you look at some numbers and you're like, okay, well, your most picked god is Hell, and you've lost 2/3 of the games you played on her. That seems like a big red flag to me, right? And so there's things like that where they had some picks and bans that the Dragons were maybe obsessed with. Don't need to be the options here and can maybe find some more flexibility for them. I think the team's capable. I mean, we've seen what these guys can do in the past. I mean, Mike is one of the guys on teams in the last few years who have been known for making the runs during this exact style of event, right? This is the time to shine. But it's been this combination, it's been this blending of this team that just hasn't worked out the way that I think that, well, some people expected, some people didn't expect. That, you know, maybe seems like it could have been a power team, but as of right now, it's left us wanting more, right? Or at least left me wanting more. And I'm hoping that today we get to start seeing what more looks like.
I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the phrase,
That chair's supposed to be empty.
Throw stuff against the wall, see what sticks. Well, now with Dardez in studio, maybe they can find something that actually works out with this team. But it feels sometimes like with the Jade Dragons, they keep trying a bunch of things. They keep, throwing out, throw a dart on the board and say, okay, it lands there. Let's see what we can do with it. And then the dart falls out partway through after it hangs there, and they say, maybe we just need a sturdier dart. And they try it again, but they just haven't found something that consistently works with this squad. They haven't really found that true team identity that we're used to. And when we think of the Oni Warriors of old, which is what the core 3 of this team is made up of, at least outside of their jungle and their support. You think of waiting for late game, get those hard scalings, get that real big team fight late. Then you throw in some of the identity in the core that Mike and LASBRA brought, which is they run it down very early style of game. And it feels like kind of that clashing of ideologies with this team hasn't really formulated into anything just yet, and they're still trying to kind of work things out. But I mean, you're right to highlight that when the Dragons and the Warriors get down to these more playoff style of modes, whenever we get into the real tournament setting, this is where the gears have typically turned a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Things pick up for these squads, and more often than not, making themselves at least into kind of the top 2, top 3 spots for those ones, if not winning out the phase. So I think a step up here for the Jade Dragons is probably the most concerning thing for them and their fans to be able to find a win, not just here, but maybe throughout the entirety of this playoffs.
And it kind of gets glanced over there, but Dardez, and he was on camera, so, maybe
back.
that's not glanced over,
He's
maybe
here
that's
now.
just showcased. Him being in the studio, I think actually does make a huge difference, though, right? A lot of gods that otherwise would suffer in performance or otherwise would suffer from ping, or just not be available to him because of ping and things like that, suddenly available. I mean, we're talking about a pretty nasty god pool to begin with. Now you're talking about one that spans even further, and I think we finally get to see it. Talk to him, what was it, earlier this year, and one of the things he used to describe himself was the fact that he calls himself a playmaker, and I want to see that, right? I want to see the playmaker portion of this team. I want to see the playmaker portion of this mid 3v3 between LASBRA, Dardez, and Mike. I think it has a lot of potential. And it's got to come in and show up. I think they're going to need all the stops. I think that if you are looking at this on paper, if you have not watched Phase 1, you're probably favoring the Dragons on name power and a whole lot of other stuff. If you watched Phase 1, I think that this one comes down, honestly, maybe 70-30 in favor of the Hounds. I feel like they have played more consistently. They've played better. They've been better looking. I think that they've had opponents that have been more difficult that they have been able to take down. And so right now I'm looking towards the Hounds as maybe even favored in this matchup. And so I need to see what the Dragons are going to provide. I think having a 5-strong is going to be very important for them.
I mean, you want to talk about flexibility just in their mid laner in general. I mean, talking about Dardez, he's playing picks that I would never try and play on ping. Things like Kronos, Cernunnos, Hachiman. Hunters are not the easiest thing to play on ping, but Dardez was playing those to success just prior. But as the picks and bans do roll through for game number 1, Horus, Yamoja, Guan Yu banned by the Dragons. Opposite side, Martichoras, Serket, and Vamana. Opens up for a first pick Hachiman, which we saw a lot in our first set. Not to the greatest success. Typically, the Hachiman doesn't really get the job done necessarily for some of those first pick positions. And then you give over the Hercules and the Aphrodite over to the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah.
Some strong front line and the ability to keep that one hyper carry style player alive with this Aphrodite pick as well.
I honestly think that I don't know, it didn't win me over last time around. I'm still willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, but first pick to me has to have so much weight behind it and has to have so much going for it to really make it scream worthwhile. I mean, a Hercules and an Aphrodite are definitely going to cause a lot more disruption in the team fights in general. I think a Hercules, honestly, I'm still kind of baffled. He's just been so good, man. But he does kind of, I want to say, I guess, shimmy behind the Hachi here because that's exactly what we see. If Vote's the one playing this, it's got to look impeccable. I mean, it's got to look really good for it. You also get the Tear in the Hell, so I don't think you're off to a bad start. Where this hell goes, though, is what's going to shape my opinions here.
Yeah, because both Dardez and Mike have played this one, and they both hold at least a similar win-loss record on it at least a 33% win rate, although Mike has 2 wins and Dardez only 1 of his 3. So to be determined where this hell goes, if it ends up in Mike's hands or in Dardez. Along with the hell, though, Tier locked in for the Jade Dragons to go over towards what we can assume to maybe be the solo lane for Nika. And that opens up the Bakasura. You want to talk about giving a pocket pick over with this Afro, something that can just run down the back line and become that hyper carry. Bakasura might fit that bill just fine for the Eldritch Hounds and for Oathhh. And as the second wave of bans rolls right through, Hebo, Nemesis, Ram, all banned so far. Still one more to the Jade Dragons. No Hunter in sight. Might be a target that the Jade Dragons continue with their bans alongside this Ram.
Marty's still available. I wonder if the Dragons are considering it. I mean, he's not been... Oh, yeah, no, he's first banned. My brain just completely fried. In that case, Heimdall. You start going down the list. There's like 3. I'm actually still of the note. I looked at it again. I don't think Kern looks that bad anymore. I mean, he's definitely not the high priority #1, but what, you lose a little bit of damage on your heavy glaive. That actually kind of hurts, because again, it was percent damage nerf, 30% to 25% of the basic attack damage on the glaive. But at the same time, that's such a small portion, it feels like, of maybe your encompassing damage. And then Wild Hunt gets half a second taken off of it, right? Instead of 2-second polymorph, it's 1.5, which hurts. But you're still polymorphing people for 1.5 seconds, and it does a decent amount of damage. Your Thorns are still doing a lot. I mean, I feel like he's still got a lot going for him. That the fact that, you know, you get hit with a nerf, and sometimes it's kind of like touching a hot stove. You knee-jerk back. I don't think that's necessary here. I think you reached out, and the stove was off this time, right? And it's like, oh, it's actually not hot at all. I feel like Kern's nerfs weren't that bad. I like seeing him here. I'm surprised maybe to see the Heimdall actually banned out over something like the Cernunnos, considering how heavily he was prioritized just a few weeks ago, and considering nothing too crazy. I mean, again, those nerfs are so small that it feels like he could eat them with no big changes.
Yeah, it's one of the things where it's like, overall damage output hasn't really gone down much, because if I'm not mistaken, the heavy glaive is just whenever he's in that melee range and gets that bonus cleave damage that comes along with it.
How often are you doing that in a team fight against players? That's just a farm thing.
That's the 1v1 boxing and dealing with the minion wave kind of deal, but might just be enough to push him down a little bit in priority. We did see how strong Heimdall was earlier on today, so maybe some worry about that, but will be Atlas and Pele. So Hell going to be going over to Dardez in the mid lane, and then Atlas for PBM this time through. Haven't seen a whole lot of success out of Atlas, if I'm not mistaken, Gore. So far in the 4 games he's been played, only a single win, that being by PBM. But haven't seen the greatest performance out of him just yet. But now that we've gotten a full look at the team compositions with this Agni kind of wrapping itself through, how do you kind of feel about both these 2 team compositions for these squads?
Honestly, I like the fact that we're seeing the Hell go mid. I'm going to start off with that because the times we've seen Hell support lately, it's just not been great, right? I feel like this year it hasn't looked too solid, and there were a lot of moments where we're starting to question. I think there were some games that were like, oh, hey, that's why you're picking it right there. That's the moment. But then you see like Paul play it in mid, and you're like, oh, you could be doing that this entire time. And you were, oh, okay, and you were in a different, I don't know why. There were a lot of moments like that where it just, I don't know, it felt like a bizarre disconnect. I think Atlas does a really, like you said, maybe not the best performance overall this last phase, but he does a good job. He's got good CC, a little bit of a global ultimate that works out in your favor. I like Pele in the jungle. It feels like you have a team that can engage, get things done here for the Dragons. And specifically, you have the players that need to carry on gods they can carry with, and players that need to set up on gods that they're going to be very well set up with. If you look towards the Hounds, though, you've got a Hercules, an Agni, an Afro, a Baka. Like, you've got power picks top to bottom, and not only just power picks, but picks that we've seen you perform incredibly well on in the past. I think the Hercules Bakasura is enough to start having me lean a little more in favor of the Hounds, considering what we've seen them do. Oathhh is an absolute powerhouse, and definitely someone that you have to worry about. I think this has been one of Ducky's better performing gods, just in general. I think the Hercules has been one this year that has really worked out well for the Hounds. And then you look at immunity from the Aphrodite, right? You choose one. You've got 3 good carries around you, a Bakasura, a Kern, and an Agni. More than likely, you want to be connected to the Bakasura. He's going to be diving deep. But if you can give him a second life, a second attempt, all of a sudden he's able to dive in deep, ignore a lot of the damage and burst that's being thrown his way, get some more work done. Cernunnos, I think, is going to be able to, like I said earlier, still be pretty powerful. And then there's Agni, who is honestly, I think, maybe not like the #1 mage right now, but if he's not the #1, he is fighting damn hard for that spot because of his damage output, his CC, and his survivability, what we've seen out of him. And again, he's always been this kind of like pinnacle of balance. I feel like what we're seeing out of him right now is just really, really good. And I think that the Hounds have found themselves a composition that works well with itself, has good setup, has good carries, has good survivability. It's kind of bringing everything for me.
The Dragons have struggled during the phase. The Hounds have succeeded during their phase, but it's all going to come down to playoff time now and tournament time. Which team will come out on top? Let's kick it all off with game number 1 with Dulcin and Trelly.
That's right. It's the beauty of Tournament Smite is regardless of what has happened throughout the phase, you now have a best of 5 to move forward in our main bracket. I say that mainly to the Jade Dragons, who have probably performed beneath their expectations, Trelly, but a team in the Jade Dragons that is far too talented to be completely quiet at an event like this. Clearly still carry a lot of fans.
That's wild.
51% of the vote for the Jade Dragons over the Eldritch Hounds, who sit right around 49%. Goodness, I would have gone into this one feeling maybe 60-40 in favor of the Hounds over the Jade Dragons. But who knows? They got Dardez now. Maybe this team has got it all figured out.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think if you were given the percentages beforehand, probably close to 60-40. The Hounds have been looking real solid. If you get to see the drafts and then vote, maybe that leans you a little bit more towards the Dragons. These are all picks that I think the Dragons do like to go to. Seeing LASBRA on pressure, that's always nice. But Oathhh on the Baka has been problems for teams in the past. You know, he's able to find some quick farm, get to level 5, and he's able to get active, which is a big deal. If your junglers are starting off getting first blood, that usually bodes well for the rest of the team. And I do tend to like what the Hounds are doing as well. The Hercules for Ducky has been a standout performance pretty much since the start of this season. Quig on the Afro, not my favorite pick, but when you're kissed to a Baka, or in this case, an Agni from BennyQ, lots of damage that could be coming through later. In this duo lane, not ones to sit back. You know, they do like to get active. Quig and Coast are trying to find fights whenever possible. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to out-pressure Mike and Vote at the moment, but maybe once you get some abilities online, once you hit level 4, even level 5, it does start to become a little bit easier.
A brawl, 2v2 over in mid. Oathhh will get out. So will BennyQ. Knock up from LASBRA. Was just around the side. It's always interesting to interview BennyQ, isn't it? I said, BennyQ, how do you match up into the Jade Dragons? And he looked at me and said, I don't know. So we'll find out. How does your playstyle match up? And he said, I'm not sure.
He's not one to give you the fake answers, though, which I appreciate.
And you know what? This is important, you know, advice to anyone in life. Whether you're going through an interview process, you're working at your job, pretending like you know something is rarely a good thing, right? I mean, being able to admit, hey, I'm not so sure, but let me go find out for you.
Yeah.
Is usually a pretty good way of answering those questions. I like to think that's what BennyQ is thinking. You know, Dave, I'm not sure how we match up, but let me go find out for you. I got a quick best of 5 to play, and I'll get back to you in the post-game interview is how I imagine BennyQ answering that question.
It's just so easy to say, you know, well, we got to play our brand of SMITE. You know, they're a good team. We're going to try and find pressure on the map, play smart objectives, and, you know, we feel good about our chances.
Maybe it's a bad question by me. Maybe it was too open-ended.
Well, I think these darn SPL players don't want to reveal their strats
That's right.
pre-game, which is smart. There's a lot on the line. You know, Masters is a big deal.
Well, you know Mike, he's tuned in to the stream, right?
Mike,
he's
Mike,
listening to that interview.
Not only is he tuned in, he's one of the few players that'll give us the nitty-gritty. He'll be like, well, first and foremost, I'm going to diff Quig. That's easy. I'm the best support in the league. Also, my whole team, if they throw, it's their fault. I'm nuts. We'll see you guys at the...
Third of all, stop interviewing me, please.
Exactly.
Nobody wants this.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But then he gives us interviews like that, and we have no choice but to go back. Mike will have his hands full, as you've mentioned, between Quig and VaporishCoast over in duo. Atlas relatively out of the standard support rotation, and I'd argue Mike's rotation at that. But still a pick that we've seen find some success in the SPL this year. Actually, a couple games in mid with BennyQ on the other side of this matchup, but we've had a lot of conversation about Mike and Mike's God Pool and what is Mike playing. Should he give up on the mage supports, go back to the Guardians? Are you looking for warrior-style supports with Mike? This is the type of set, a best of 5, where you can kind of pick, counter-pick. You build more of a storyline in picks and bans, where Mike will be able to find a bit more of an identity. I'm going to pull onto Oathhh right now to start things off. Oathhh, though, needs the Undying Love. Looks like it avoided the stun that Vote sent forward. Vote does not have dash, does not have ultimate. Little more damage from LASBRA.
Wow.
And one last shot from Vote finds its way in. And the Jade Dragons in a 3v3 brawl on left, able to pick up first blood.
Man, my guess is Oathhh thought he was good because I saw his blink flash up. He had a moment there where he was able to blink out. Either A, he thought he was fine, or B, he thought the kiss from Quig was necessary and tried to wait for it. But was able to juke out the ult from LASBRA, and that should have been enough. He ate a lot of damage, and it was a great grab by Mike that forced out that damage, forced out that fight. You are giving first blood over to Vote, which is dangerous, especially on this Hachiman. With the buffs this guy's received, is extremely good in the 1v1. The boxing just helps out so much, and finishing up that Dev Gauntlets first goes a long way. So the Jade Dragons are going to have a lot of pressure on the left side of the map, and we've seen how easy that an early first blood in duo can translate into an early Gold Fury. Just a little bit of pressure, pushing Coast and Quig underneath the tower. Maybe Quig rotates out because he realizes there's not much that can get done. And then you just leave a lot of that map state, and here comes LASBRA again.
I don't think he's got Undying Love. Sure doesn't. LASBRA blinked over the wall and ganks duo once more. We talk a lot about LASBRA. Think about early in the phase as well, when the Jade Dragons had not started their landslide down. A lot of it was around LASBRA and the great brand of SMITE that he was playing. And the conversation was, what types of gods can he do that on? Pele has always been one of those types of picks for Laz, alongside the Cirquettes of the jungle world. Those styles of picks, Pele's right in there. And that's just a heads-up play. The Eldritch Hounds not having their purple buff warded, unfortunately, fall prey to another gank. And an early Soul Eater's now gotten a few stacks.
Certainly has. And that's going to bode well for your healing later on, which LASBRA definitely appreciates. Just goes well with Pele's kit. But as I said, I'm curious if Quig decides to rotate out early. That's the real question. Now that this lane is essentially dead, Coast could still find some pressure, but there's going to be a lot of sitting underneath tower and not really looking to fight. Does the Afro leave and say, hey, I'm going to let you solo farm, good luck, I'm going to look for pressure elsewhere? Or does Quig stay here, sap farm, sort of babysit, and try and make sure the left side of the map doesn't just go away? It does seem like the Jade Dragons want to keep the pressure up. They are constantly positioned on the north side of the map, staying very high in enemy territory. And there's probably another gank heading over to Duo here. Look how far up Quig and Coast are. This could be dangerous.
Wow, and they have it's all Jade Dragons wards on this side of the map. Quig has Undying Love, uses it early. But man, he's gonna fall once more. The Wild Hunt actually looks nice from Coast. Gets the beads off of Vote. Maybe Vote sensing that Oathhh was in and maybe could have gotten a return kill. I think the wards tell you enough of a story here, Trelly. It's an arc of 3 wards for the Jade Dragons on the Hound side of the jungle. And it's the exact pathing that the Dragons were able to use. And now this has just gotten simple for the Dragons over on left. And you imagine Gold Fury, not right now, but in the next few minutes in consideration, just because of the state of the left side.
Well, I want to be clear.
Okay, be clear.
I look foolish now because I said that the Hounds would stay back because that lane is dead.
Yeah, but just because they didn't doesn't make you
right,
look
I'm
foolish.
just saying it was the objective right call, and now it looks like Coast dashes forward, trying to find the kill onto Mike.
Gotta
Couple
get it.
more autos will do it, but he does not have the damage. BennyQ makes a good rotation over, not able to find that kill. But yeah, staying back would have been a smart call. That's not in the Hounds playbook. Once again, getting aggressive in the duo lane. They do not care. They said LASBRA's not here. Maybe we can get aggressive, make a play. BennyQ rotates out. Doesn't pay off for him, but still does open up some space on the left side of the map.
Now, Coast still doesn't have his ultimate. Used it on the 3-man gank to try to save Quig. I'm really splitting hairs here. If there's a Wild Hunt there, maybe it catches Mike. And VaporishCoast is able to pick up the first kill of the game for the Eldritch Hounds, but neither here nor there because Mike lives on and the ultimate wasn't available for VaporishCoast. Finally, a ward drops for the Hounds in the purple side of the duo lane. It's really just, I guess, the bracer from Quig is what I'm spotting out. And now, a more official ward is there as well. So the Hounds should be a bit more safe over on left. Which will leave LASBRA up to farming up a bit. We haven't really had time to check into the solo lane matchup, Chile. This combination of gods a bit more frequent now, Tyr and Hercules. Some recent changes to Tyr. You can find a stun on his ultimate. Depending on what stance you're in when you leap in. And I'm all for a Tyr meta. I think it's a really dynamic pick, and I think Nika the type of player that can really play Disruptor, which is what you need to be doing on this pick.
Yep, it is a playmaker at the very least, but you're safe in lane. You shouldn't be having too much problems up against a Hercules. It's just what I found is the contagion is so annoying when you're Tyr. It's not going to be gone here. Ducky actually goes for the full regrowth. Could have been a possibility, though. So many instances of proccing that ability, especially in lane, and the anti-heal helps out. But it looks like not going to be an issue here for Nika. Going into the Transcendence, this is a build we've seen pop up. Specifically on the Tyrs and the Guan Yus of the world, you get a little damage online. So hey, I'm already very safe. I have CC immunity. I've got lots of movement. Why not try and 100 to 0 some carries once I'm able to rotate out? See if that's a possibility for Nika. Won't be coming online for a while, but definitely shows that he's feeling fine in lane against Ducky and doesn't fear his life. At the moment, the Hounds are fearing nothing as they step up to the Gold Fury, but the Jade Dragons know this is coming. They've got the rotation.
It's just a faster grouping from the Eldritch Hounds, and the Hounds will get the Gold Fury, but a fight to be had after the fact.
See ya.
Quig has used his ult, and it only delays the inevitable. BennyQ now chased down by Dardez. Where's the burst of damage? It's not there. Benny will dash away. That said, PolarBearMike has a roundabout entry into the Tier 1 tower of the Eldritch Hounds. It looks like BennyQ will survive. And so it actually ends up being Eldritch Hounds, Gold Fury, and you only lose your support, despite the Jade Dragons truly building up a bit of a lead over on left.
I'm wondering if anything else comes from it. Oathhh did proc the Butcher Blades, decided not to go in with them. And Dardez is absolutely swinging. I thought there was going to be more of a chase down there. The Eldritch Hounds recognized they had burn, they had map pressure. And it was a bit of a 50-50, but not too much damage built here for the Atlas just yet. Mike was not able to go for the steal, so in that case, ends up being pretty worth there for the Hounds. The Jade Dragons want to try and get the Pyromancer. Not too much steal potential besides the Boulder, and it's too late.
It is, but there's a Runic Bomb still sitting. The Jade Dragons haven't been able to get their prize. Mike could be the prize for the Hounds. Looks like he will be. Ducky finally notches a kill for the Eldritch Hounds. Nika doubles back and ends up picking up the Runic Bomb, so at least the Jade Dragons able to get the objective. So trailing now in the last couple minutes, we've seen supports traded out for objectives on either side of the map. I suppose in the grand scheme of things, largely doesn't really end up changing much. It's the 2-level lead for Vote and the 3-kill lead we must keep our eyes on. LASBRA made dual lane waves early in this game, but has since had to slow down a bit. Now looking for his next target.
I love talking about the ins and outs, the very small investments you can make in SMITE, things like chalices, for example.
For passive income?
Yeah, where, you know, buying low, selling high, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Great buzzwords of SMITE.
And Nika and Mike have both purchased ward chalices, right? That puts them 800 in the hole.
Yep.
But now they don't have to buy wards for the rest of the game. That's going to slowly help them out. They've got crazy vision. They should have constant objective wards, which is interesting because the Gold Fury got snuck from them.
Because they got a stolen, right?
Yeah, I digress. It will start to pay off later on. But because Nika picked up the Runic Bomb, I was like, oh no, with his chalice, he's not going to be able to get wards. No, he didn't buy a chalice. He got a ward chalice, so we'll lose a little bit of sustain. But again, it didn't seem like he was ever too worried. Maybe a gank on a Ducky, though.
Could be. And a fight happening on left. Ducky should fall here. Nika's got ultimates. He got the chase down. That's a kill for the Jade Dragons on right. But it's answered back by the Hounds over on the left side. Forces beads off of Vote. And a cleanse from Dardez, who held on to both relics. Eldritch Hounds now going eye for an eye on a couple of these kills. Few waves happening on right. Early Runic Bomb usage from Nika as well. This will open up the map just a bit further. And maybe allow LASBRA to have a bit more of a presence over on the right side. So Tower may be the big difference maker in this last trade.
Certainly could be. As Ducky goes back to base, recognizes he might need a little bit more FizzD, and he does end up picking a Sunder in that second slot. I was curious if he was fearing for his life. Does not seem like it. Doesn't need a survivability relic, doesn't need a blink. He's getting Sunder to try and blow up some of these tankier targets on the side of the Jade Dragons. Mike's getting surrounded here by 4. How long can he survive? It looks like a lot of damage coming his way, but he will be fine thanks to the cleanse from Dardez. The Jade Dragons might want to try and chase this down, though, because Nika has arrived.
Yeah, Nika's here, blinks forward, shoves Quig aside. No pick for the Jade Dragons. They were hoping to fight, maybe grab a kill right before the Fury respawns in 15 seconds. Can't get that done. So maybe a bit of pressure applied over in mid. Mike has fallen both times on the Jade Dragon side of things. He's picked up 4 assists out of 5 kills in the meantime. Tied for top kill participation in the game. Mike will get a bit tankier. Right now only 12 stacks in the Prophetic. Stone of Binding. We're not unused to seeing Atlases build a little damage at some point in the build, so I'll keep my eyes peeled on what Mike is building. Vote wants a solo. He'll get the beads from VaporishCoast and the ultimate. LASBRA had blink, but gets the timer set, and Ducky pulls half of Laz's HP and ultimate. Value trade from the Hercules over towards left. I wonder if that's enough presence for the Eldritch Hounds to just pull this primal.
I mean, you said it, LASBRA had blink. That's a very easy ability to just blink away from. It seemed like he didn't want to use it, but ends up ulting out anyways, so doesn't end up being a worth trade. As you said, the Hounds do feel confident. They are going to start the pull. Remember, Coast doesn't have beads anymore.
Doesn't, and might have a Pele lurking instead. Oathhh is initiated on LASBRA. Dardez cleans up Ducky in the meantime. Laz has lived, but not long enough for his team to come help him out. The thorns on the ground from VaporishCoast enough to trade out 1 for 1, but the Jade Dragons now, remember, they've got sustain. They've got healing from Dardez. Or keep these health bars nice and full. BennyQ's in range. He would be the real steal potential, but he'll think twice. He'll head back. 1 for 1 trade, but a Primal Fury for the Jade Dragons. So now the Dragons, on a couple of instances, Trelly, they've gone 1 for 1. They've lost the guy over here. They picked up a kill over there, but they've gotten towers. They've gotten objectives. It's that one extra thing after the fights that has made a bit of a difference. Now a kill on a BennyQ. Really the beads. The difference maker. Hounds, though, will go the opposite of the initial trade and pick up the Pyro after losing the Fury.
Yep, both carries on the sides of the Eldritch Hounds, not looking too good relic-wise. In fact, no one really on the Hounds are looking great relic-wise. It's pretty much just BennyQ's Aegis. Everyone else says, hey, we don't want to fight, which means the Jade Dragons can step forward and attempt a tier 1 tower. That's going to go uncontested. But a Runic Bomb in pocket for Oathhh, maybe that comes in a little bit later in the game. He's not going to be able to use it now. But usually in situations like this, Oathhh does not group up. He does not team fight. He does what you're seeing now. He says, hey, I'm going to steal some farm over on right. Do you mind if I push some waves? I'll get some towers. when I come back, I'm going to be level 20. Like, we cannot try and engage with the Bakasura with 2 items. It's just not going to work out. The rest of the enemies are just too far ahead. I mean, you can tell. Oathhh is trying to deal with Dardez. He steps up, gets half health, says, all right, that was fun. Not going to do that anymore. I need more itemization. And it's probably the smart call. The Jade Dragons are in the driver's seat of this game so far, with both neutral objectives gone and Fire Giant uncontested for the time being. It's just going to be who can get free farm in the meantime. And because, again, the relics on the side of the Hounds are down, it's not going to be them stepping forward anytime soon.
No, it won't. LASBRA has largely been kept in check. If I'm thinking about the player who's been stepping forward a lot, again, you go back to the 3 or 4 kills LASBRA was able to get going on left. It was a 3 and then the 1 on right for a total of 4. But the Pele has been searching for those targets here as of late, has not been able to find them. Aphrodite added into the build. I wondered if Dardez, we're looking at builds across the board, wondered if Dardez would follow the Paul school of thought. A little regrowth in the build, a little defense.
Little sickle.
A little sickle maybe at some point. Because Paul was still swinging that game, if I remember correctly, despite some defensive itemization. And really felt unkillable by the end of the game. And this is, look, Dardez is not at that unkillable status, but thinking about Dardez makes me think of the storyline that we've been following with the Dragons. It's been, Dardez is not here, this team looks a bit lost. Maybe they'll get things together when the team is all together. And at least early indicators, and this is about as early as it gets for the game 1 of a best of 5. Early indicators seem to be they've got something figured out with this team comp specifically.
Yep. I think Dardez, as you said, not unkillable, but about as close as you can get at the moment, just because there's no threat on the side of the Hounds except for BennyQ, and he hasn't been really getting too close to this Agni, just trying to stay away, cleanse his teammates whenever necessary, and walking up and half-healthing Oathhh, just like that, whenever he gets the opportunity to. Does not pull beads there, but did use the ultimate for the CC immunity, so Oathh's not going to have that for a little bit longer. And it does seem like these fights are being attempted whenever the Gold Fury's about to spawn back in. The Hounds step up, they try and get vision on Oracles. The Jade Dragons are there. They meet them halfway, pull an ultimate, pull a relic, something like that. But Oathhh was able to grab at least the bladed boomerang. That's trying to buff this Bakasura's damage. I've seen a lot of Quig being kissed to Oathhh recently. Doesn't seem like the top damage dealer on the side of the Hounds, but the only one who might need that safety in order to do damage. BennyQ's safe. He's got plenty of range. He can poke from a distance, but Oathhh has to get up close and personal to do his damage, so probably smart that Quig sticks around. But look at where the Hounds are posturing. They've got a lot of presence on the right side of the map. I'm curious if they're waiting for an attempt, but it looks like Nika's not waiting.
Nika lets BennyQ know exactly where he is, and LASBRA's got gap close. Blink plus ultimate, and the Wild Hunt mitigated by the sustain of Dardez. Might still be some more chase here from the Jade Dragons. My goodness, BennyQ got about as far away from that fight as you possibly can. But double blinks, double gap close between a Tyr and a Pele means the entire lane is not safe. Fortunately for BennyQ, that'll be his first death here this game. Now, what are the Jade Dragons able to do? Maybe open up the map a bit further. LASBRA's got some assistance. Nika rounding behind the dual lane of the Eldritch Hounds. For now, it's just Pyro. But positioning might tell you that word clearing and Fire Giant Trelly is considered. Is this the right call?
Seems like it's pretty free. Ducky will be able to walk up. It's just trying to stop the boulder, and you've got plenty of CC to do so. It looks like Ducky's not going to show himself. He's just going to go for the steal attempt. So for the Jade Dragons, this is free, right? They've got no idea. It's all about timing here for Ducky.
Ducky. Is it just a boulder, or no, it's not a rock.
Nope.
And it's the Fire Giant for the Jade Dragons and the Gold Fury for the Eldritch Hounds. LASBRA will get the ultimate off of Quig as well. Dragons, of course, will take a Fire Giant for a Fury every single day of the week, and I love the aggressive call from the Dragons team. And Trelly, this has been a team where games have dragged on. It's been one of the longest average game time teams in the league.
Oh, yeah.
This has been a faster-paced Jade Dragons.
Yep, you're 100% right. This is the kind of change-ups we need to see from the Jade Dragons if we're to believe that they're a top-seeded team. And so far, I've liked everything that we've seen. The early aggression, playing to these objectives. Sure, they let a couple slip through because the Eldritch Hounds just got there sooner. But it's been a lot of aggressive plays, a lot of blinks in, a lot of just forcing relics, which is trying to create space. And it's been working out for them now that they've got FG. left side of the map is the target. This is usually when I would expect to see Oathhh just ignoring his team, but it looks like it's actually Coast who he's trying to split push. There's a reason you don't send your ADC to do this work, because they don't win 1v1s usually.
Coast has his actives and his ultimate, but LASBRA dodges all the damage from Coast's ult. It's either going to be LASBRA or it's going to be Nika. Right now it's looking like Nika. Aegis though used after the fact. Takes a minute, but Oathhh, he gets sundered now and tossed aside. Coast uses just about everything at his disposal outside of the beads. He gets 2 targets down to half, but neither of the targets down to empty. Dragons will clean up the ADC from the Eldritch Hounds and shove down a couple of towers on this map. Great value early on from this Fire Giant buff. They were initially at a gold deficit, but I think some towers here will start to pick that back up.
Certainly will. The Jade Dragons have not stopped those aggressive plays, and it's all about not giving the Eldritch Hounds an inch, right? Coast went for a Bastion and a tier 1 tower. And LASBRA and Nika said, nope, you don't get those. We're going to grab all 3 tier 2s if possible, and we're not even going to try and give you 100 gold for free. In this case, doesn't end up working out. Coast drops, and you lose your Aegis in the process. I'm surprised about the Phoenix call, but I like the aggression, right? The Jade Dragons, they don't have a full grouping here. They recognize that it was a bit of a split engagement. Maybe they try to go for that left side bird. No way they had the damage to do so, but it was a bit of, just checking to see how long it would take for the response time there of the Eldritch Hounds, who are not going to let the base be broken so easily. So now full-on retreat call here for the Dragons, but you said it yourself. The problem has been sieging. I think we've all noticed that. The Jade Dragons get to this point, not relatively easy, but they do get here a lot. It's been, how do you translate that into breaking the base? And Coast once again dashes forward, forcing out the ultimate. Not going to find a kill, but Boat does have to use the cavalry charge, or the mounted archery to get away.
Coast uses beads there. He might have seen something that I just didn't, but now nearly 3 minutes. 2.5 at least without the beads for VaporishCoast, which is going to be iffy if this Fire Giant gets pulled immediately by the Jade Dragons, which it maybe should. Although Fire Giant and Fury, they'll be coming up around the same amount of time. Hounds got the last Fury. Dragons got the last FG. The Dragons can really min-max the map. The Hounds have a lot of damage. They might be able to burn the FG if left alone with it for too long. And the ward coverage on that side isn't the best just yet. Maybe as hinted at by a trap the Eldritch Hounds have set for Nika, but he'll spring the trap, get out just fine with the cheese. And a Pyromancer pull for the Jade Dragons. Adds a Runic Bomb, which will help us sieging here in just a bit of time. The Hounds are playing very cautiously back on their side of the jungle.
Rightfully so. Nika just ulted forward into 3 just because he could. He's like, hey, I was able to step forward, try and pull a relic. BennyQ doesn't have Aegis for a little bit longer. And I'm guessing the Jade Dragons wanted to go for Fire Giant immediately, so not a bad time to ult in. Nika does lose a bit of that engage, but still has the Blink and a Sunder available. Dardez is taking a lot of damage, though. He's got plenty of heal, so should be able to heal up just fine.
Takes a whole heap of poke from the Eldritch Hounds. One more rotation of those abilities, though, will get that health bar right back towards full. LASBRA lurking, hunting. He's picked up a Spectral Armor, so he's imagining if he's going to brawl out with Oathhh a little bit. He wants those crits to swing just a little bit less, and it's exactly what's happened. I'm thinking, without that Spectral, LASBRA is in a bit more trouble. Oathhh will use his ult, LASBRA will use his as well. Blink, though, down from Oathhh. That's the difference maker in this fight. So a bit of defense in the build for Laz. Maybe he's sensing, Charlie, there's going to be plenty of 1v1s in the jungle at the end of this game.
Yep, it is a fight that you usually would not be willing to take, even from ahead. Bakasura just gained so much value in the 1v1. The Flaming Blink in from Mike. And it looks like the dive is coming through.
Double stun in from Nika, but the Polymorph instant from VaporishCoast, but it simply hasn't been enough. LASBRA's joined the fight quicker than Oathhh has been able to, and Nika has controlled this pre-objective fight to the tune of 2 kills, 1 on either side of the map for the Eldritch Hounds. Solo, ADC, both dealt with. And now it's a double back for the easy FG.
Yep, Nika can do no wrong. He's stepping forward, he's creating space, he's unkillable, and he's 4-0
But
this
how many
tier.
wards does he place, Trelly?
I would assume a heck of a lot, because he's got that ward chalice locked and loaded.
11.
Yep, and it's not gonna stop. Once he goes back to base, he gets 2 more. And it looks like the Jade Dragons are running it right down, right side of the map. And look, Nika knows they're on the Fury, and he's going to stop some backs here. I have to assume BennyQ gets away, but Quig, no shot. He's back. And oh, the Sundering Blast. No. AoE, make sure to stop that back. So one Phoenix goes down for absolute free.
Should. Oathhh close by. Oathh's smarter than a player who's going to jump in. It was 22 wards placed by Quig, by the way. Diffing everyone. But Jade Dragons are able to min-max the early portion of their Fire Giant buff, and they've all got nearly 2,000 gold to go back and spend up. Deal with the right side Phoenix. Is this a matter of scaling here, Trailer? Do the Hounds even have that going in their favor? Or is the 8,000 gold lead simply too out of control for the compositions that are built?
I'm not going to say that the game going later wouldn't help the Hounds. It certainly would. It's just the Jade Dragons, I feel, have not hit all of their power spikes. Mike is building some damage here. Vote still has some itemization he would like to get online. A lot of these players traditionally have been foregoing the upgrade toward their relics to try and get a 3k pot, all of which would still benefit the Jade Dragons. They just have so much more gold in hand, or about that they've been earning, and they just backed and spent it all. So that lead becomes very prominent here. If the Eldritch Hounds can hold the door and keep the rest of their Phoenixes alive and fight an Enhanced Fire Giant, yeah, that'd be great. But that's asking a lot here. 2 Phoenixes up, and the Jade Dragons have the opportunity to play this slow and wait for the right side minions to push forward. Once again, Nika probably the one who wants to initiate this fight. Blink to the back line, start with an ult, pop some Sunders, all of which have been very difficult for the Eldritch Hounds to deal with, even without having a right side Phoenix down.
Seems like a matter of time. Mike has finally gotten tanky enough to where he feels like he can just step forward. And he's also started to build a little bit of damage. Damage Atlas, something the Eldritch Hounds know plenty about. Their mid laner, BennyQ's built it a few times this year. Mike will prefer the outcome of what this game looks like, however. It should be a resounding Game 1 win for the Jade Dragons. It all started on left with LASBRA early in this game, often in this game. Now we transition to talking about Nika just a bit. Tier with Blink and Sunder. Going up and over, finding stuns. Importantly, taking beads away. We'll try to shove Ducky aside. Won't do so. Luckily, it won't take that much damage in trade. Fire minions are on right, but there's only 20 seconds left on this FG buff, Trelly. Runic Bomb there for Dardez, but unsure if that's enough to really soften up this defense for the Hounds.
That's what I'm talking about, the Jade Dragons. I mean, you get the right side Phoenix, that's all well and good, but it will spawn up here shortly. It's very easy to step forward to defend that Phoenix while trying to defend EFG. And it looks like the Jade Dragons are backing up here. Not the greatest siege attempt, but they don't want to bite off more than they can chew. Not without Enhanced Fire Giant. That is when things become a lot easier. So the Eldritch Hounds have done the hard part, right? That was making sure that you don't lose another bird before EFG. Now someone can push up right, and the rest of the team can go for their defense. The issue, however, is that if you fight for EFG, you haven't been winning your fights, right? If it's not underneath Phoenix, it has not been a very even trade. 10-3 hasn't been looking too good here for the Hounds. So winning an Enhanced Fire Giant fight is going to be the most difficult part. Maybe you go for a steal attempt and try and get out. But there is a lot of movement speed, a lot of chase down potential here from the Jade Dragon. So if you step up, it's got to be all or nothing. You got to say, hey, we're going in for the steal, we're going in for the fight, or we are going to retreat and just try and turtle against this Enhanced Fire Giant once it spawns in. And that does seem to be the call. The Eldritch Hounds are stepping forward. BennyQ is clearing out those fire minions. And that right side bird will spawn in any second. Enhanced Fire Giant just touched down. And it's the Jade Dragons first to arrive. They're looking for some engage, trying to pull some relics. So far, everything's available except for Nika's Blink. That means the Hounds are going to have to deal with one more wave of fire minions at the very least. And the Jade Dragons know this. They're sieging forward. They're not going for any objectives.
They want to fight. This is the Jade Dragons fans have been waiting to see. One where Nika's allowed to spearhead and the team can really follow in behind. They won't find their pick before the Enhanced Fire Giant, however. However, they should feel comfortable should a fight break out. So BennyQ from range can cause some trouble. Right now it's Nika who's learning that the hard way. Fire Giant down to half, and it's reset by the Jade Dragons. PolarBearMike's been left alone.
He's gone!
And man, BennyQ has opened up the killing here with the opening pick for the Eldritch Hounds. Jade Dragons, I guess just a bit on a different page there. PBM crippled in place by Oathhh, and there was no escaping. Can the Eldritch Hounds now turn it around and pick up the FG?
One more fire wave going down that right side, so that Phoenix could drop. Nika finally does get chucked out, and it looks like they're sieging forward. LASBRA's got big damage.
LASBRA doesn't die, but neither does Coast or Oathhh. Razor thin margins in the health bar for LASBRA. BennyQ starting to put up those damage numbers, Trelly. Top of the game by about 5,000 over his ADC, but about 7,000 over anyone else in this game. I mean, you're near full build on an Agni, you've got range, you've got poke. You expect those numbers to be exactly where they are. So it's going to be poke versus sustain battle is what we imagine. Can BennyQ out-poke the sustain that Dardez might supply? LASBRA has rejoined the fight. So has Nika. Nika flips over the wall. Dardez rolls forward, but it's right into a boulder. LASBRA's dealt with BennyQ. That's your top damage dealer in the game. He's got a double kill. All the while, it's a fight for the Jade Dragons to regain control and regain stability around the FG.
It looks like the Hounds just lose everything. That was a 5v4. Mike made it out of base and sent his ult through, but that was just about it. And they're just sieging forward. The Jade Dragons, they don't care. Ducky's back gets stopped. And now Mike's going to chase him to the ends of the earth. It's going to be Coast trying to keep this alive, and one grab will stop that teleport. It's Coast versus the world. He's got to keep his Titan alive.
But now it's the Jade Dragons who really dominate the early game, have a slight stumble towards the end, but are able to make the win happen nonetheless. And they'll take a Game 1 lead here in this best of 5. Trelly, it's maybe the best look at the Jade Dragons we've gotten all season long.
Yep, I was a big fan of the Hell. Big damage. The cleanses were on point. I think that Dardez was looking clean. And then in this case, Nika on the tier. I mean, there was no answer. It was content of the backline. LASBRA finds the delete key, which is what they've been looking for to start that siege. I mean, it just really did seem like they were playing slow, right? They still had to be, they get the right side Phoenix. They still had to make sure they were playing as smart as they could. But once they opened the door, there was one throw where they dropped Mike, and then they just found the 5v4. It was the fight just lined up so perfectly.
It's a great start early from Laz. Again, you talk about the kind of transition plan that you set for games like this. LASBRA getting active early.
Yep.
You set up the duo lane for success. That eventually the baton gets passed to Nika, who's starting off the fights, getting involved. LASBRA with a massive dive, though, late in this game. Picks up a double kill. Nika gets a kill on the other side of the fight. The Jade Dragons able to make good on what was a great start. Game 1 of the Jade Dragons. Game 2, it's up in the air, and it's coming up next.
Made it look the way. 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 Made it look the way.
The upward trend continues for the Jade Dragons as they've notched game number 1 of their best of 5 against the Eldritch Hound as a win for themselves. If you want to support the Jade Dragons, the Eldritch Hounds, or any team in the SPL, then you can go over to shop.highriskstudios.com/SPL. And thanks to our good friends over at Skulls, you can pick up a jersey, hoodie, t-shirt, and all kinds of apparel for the SPL. Once again, brought to us by our friends over at Skulls. Thank you so much for joining us once again in the season. If you want recommendations, at least for me, I know we're not supposed to have bias of any teams, but if we're going just by personal looks bias, I think, in my opinion, the Ravens kind of win out
I like
the
those
jersey
colors.
department this time through. It's solid colors as a look there. But if you want to support anytime, now that you've had a full phase to kind of look at some of these players, get familiar with the teams, find your favorite through, what better time than right here before playoffs and moving in towards Masters as well to try and pick up one of those jerseys for your teams. But Gore, game number 1, Jade Dragons is just completely commanding this one through.
Yeah.
Early game, a couple of quick kills over to the Dragons, and from there, able to continue to snowball this game in their favor towards the late game.
Yeah, it's a story in 2 parts. Part 1 is LASBRA, and Part 2 is Nika, and that's pretty much it, right? I mean, you get the jungle starting off to, I think, a very stellar start. The Pele has a lot of phenomenal moments, and when you have the lulls from LASBRA throughout that game, Nika is a shining pillar for the Dragons to help bring things forward. I think that you're going to see a lot of similar highlights and a lot of this. I think that you do get a lot. I mean, Haji looked really good for vote. You cannot really gloss over that one. I think that it was very important. I also think that the front line and the healing is definitely a huge factor for why this team was able to find success. But the ones that were at the forefront of the success were going to be coming out of the solo lane. I think Nika just looked phenomenal. And again, when things maybe got a little rough overall for the Dragons in parts of that game, Nika more or less kind of got his hand on the wheel and said, we are not losing this. We are not throwing. We are not going to put ourselves in a position where the Hounds find their way back in. And after such a dominant early game, you tend to have a little bit of leeway in the late game. Like, you can make a couple of mistakes. And dominant is the only word I would use for the early game here. I think it just looked incredibly good. Again, mid, you maybe get a couple clapbacks from the Hounds, but by the time we got towards the end of the game, it was just nothing but strength coming down from the Dragons. I think every single one of them gets to look good. Every single one of them gets to put something out there. Damage is spread pretty equally across the board for them. And they didn't have a lot of opportunities to maybe make and pump the numbers up to make them look even better because they were just winning so hard for a majority of that one. Unfortunately, on the other side, I mean, you look at it like Benny, Agni into Hell is always going to feel a little rough, right? Because the cleanse is just going to undo any of your CC, especially if it's just single target. If Hell's not in there, then good luck. And if Hell is in there, then you have just enough time to pop a cleanse right before the stun actually goes through, which can then help you with the reset. So that one felt like an unfortunate matchup. We didn't get to see much from the Bakasura, but the dual lane didn't really shine either. It just feels like a lot of stumbles for the Hounds.
Yeah, and for the picks and bans in Game 2, I wonder what adaptations are going to be made for some of these teams out here. For the Eldritch Hounds specifically, I wonder then, maybe, Gore, if we see this Hell ban, while not the most well-performing god over in the support role, has been shown by Dardez, by Paul in the past, that still has a place in that mid. We could maybe eliminate some of that healing that does come from that mid lane, some of that big damage burst that can come from the Hell as well, as shown by Dardez in that game. So I wonder if maybe there would be some priority to banning that one away. I'm also personally just going to say, not a fan of the Aphrodite in
Yeah,
support. With
we
all
were
the
talking
nerfs
about
that have
that.
come her way, with some of the change-ups that have happened in her itemization, just feels like she's not quite all there anymore,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been a very winning god for the Eldritch Hounds.
That's the other key factor, right? Like Afro right now is question marks, right? Is she still good? Is she not? I mean, we've seen. Look, Jake playing her has a little bit of a pass. Hurry playing her has a little bit of a pass. Most of the other players, and notice that those are the top 2 from each division, or the top 1 from each division, the ones that went straight to Masters that aren't having to deal with any of the seeding because they were just better throughout the phase. Although maybe a little closer for the Ravens. But then you come to this, and like you said, maybe there's some itemization changes you don't like. There were teams that I was already not a big fan of the Aphrodite to begin with. Go back a few weeks, and we're talking about a 28% win rate for her, and 2 of those wins were Hurry, 2 of those wins were Jake. And so you're looking at it here, and much like you had said, we were talking about this coming into this room and into the break. Now 0 for 4 when Quig is piloting the Aphrodite. It's not just it doesn't look that great. It's like, no, after 4 games, it's not a coincidence, man. Like, you're just not winning on this pick. It's not providing for your team what maybe you need. You know, in the ideal world, you've got 10 games of data plus to be able to truly say, is this good or not? But I think after 4, especially if they're all losses, and we'd have to go back and look to see how much trouble it has truly caused, but is it enough? It slows things down. It does empower. In theory, it's great, because if I had a god that would make Oathhh just be better, in theory, that's going to carry you out. There's definitely a lot more that goes wrong in that game. You can't just point it all at the Aphrodite. But the Aphrodite has been a very common factor in some of the losses for the Hounds. And so I think actually the Dragons may be doing the Hounds a favor here, forcing Quig onto something that could be a little stronger. You also got rid of the Yamoja, though, which is going to maybe slow that roll out of the support. I'm really excited, I guess, to see where they go. Wouldn't be upset watching Quig play something like a Terra, considering what we've been seeing. Still have a personal bias towards Maui. I recognize it's a personal bias. Has nothing to do with the Pro League. I just really like the guy. And I think that in the right hands, in the right composition, that's the other key. The right comp that you're playing into, he can look pretty good.
Well, as for the bans, along with the Afro and the Emoji, Horus was the final ban for the Dragons, so all focusing over on Quig in the support role, maybe right to do so, trying to limit his god pool. Bans for the Hounds were the Serket, Hel, and Hachiman, but it gives over a first pick for Vamana. Now, coming into this patch, a 5.2, or no, 10.5. Wow, 5.2. Where am I? Well, how many
I'll tell you where
I'm
you are.
5 years in the
5 years
past.
ago. And in the spring, nonetheless.
I might even still be in the winter at that point. No, the 10.5 bonus patch. A few nerfs coming over towards Vamana through his passive, through his ultimate, just trying to weaken him overall on the curve, but still, at least as of the first couple of games, have seen a lot of ban and pick priority towards him now as his first pick for the day and for the playoffs, along with Terra and Merlin for the Hounds. Merlin, a comfort pick for BennyQ, as mentioned in the interview, said that it's probably the widest gap of gods that he would at least play if he had to pick one there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Hebo Marty and Guan Yu on the opposite side of the board. Feels like ease of application on anti-heal so far, pretty strong for both of these teams. The Merlin, Divine Ruin easy, Marty with his own kit, even throwing things like a Brawlers, or even maybe something from the Hebo to kind of pick up an answer there.
Yeah, I think that this, again, it's such an interesting playing field that we see out there because of the gods locked in. Guan is someone I'm keeping my eye on, right? A couple of nerfs that were thrown his way, nothing too serious. The Vamana one I am really interested in because we've seen him banned out. We've seen him focus heavily here for the Hounds. And a lot of what his nerfs were affected. So what was it, last week, 2 weeks ago now, that we saw Baskin go like 9-1 on this pick, or 10-2, whatever it was. It was absolutely insane. A lot of that, to me, is maybe going to get quelled in terms of the kill capability, right? Because Sleeping Giant, for those of you who don't know, Vamana's passive, you get physical power and attack speed based on physical procs that you have, which is really nice. They reduced that 25% to 20 for physical power gained from physical protections, and then 15% to 10 for attack speed gained from physical protections. So in theory, just in general, he's not going to be smacking you as hard as often. That being said, it's only 5% off each, which earlier today I was saying is a relatively large change in certain circumstances, depending on where you're looking at it. Here, it feels like it's a big change, percentage-wise. but it doesn't quell how tanky he's going to be. And I think that that's still going to cause a problem. They also reduced physical power on his ultimate, right, that you're gaining from just popping into the Colossal Fury. So that maybe changes a little bit. I still think he's going to be able to disrupt the squishies. So now we're not talking, can he kill you? It's just, can he get back there and get your relics? And then maybe actually still kill you. We might still see him be capable of it, but I do think that at worst case scenario for Vamana right now, is get to the back line, make the Hebo or the Marty, or in this case now the Ram, just feels so uncomfortable that they have to pop beads, they have to pop their Aegis or Chel if they have that, just to get away from you, and then your team comes in as backup, right? Then everybody else steps up to the plate.
So it was an E-Shell hover, then locked into Ram, so double hunter for the Jade Dragons. The Hebo jungle most likely for a LASBRA. Opposite end Fenrir, often the answer towards fighting up against the Hebo early game. No way to really break that brutalize. Does have the Hebo, or really anybody on this squad so far. It would take Rama to go into his ultimate or to do the back roll into the cripple shot after Guan. You'd have to use ultimate to do so. And same for the Martichoras. So far, not a lot of great answers to at least dealing with this Fenrir. Now, with that E-Shell hover, and I doubt we'll have any actual discussion point on there, but I wonder if maybe there's potential that Mike could be running that one support, has a lot of healing in the kit,
Yeah.
has a lot of CC in there. I mean, a blind, a root, a knock-up, as well as the healing for your allies, so all kind of baked into there. So maybe potential, but so far I've only seen Paul play it over in the mid-roll,
Yeah.
as it's Fenrir and Cernunnos locked in for the Hounds.
I do feel, and it's a conversation that comes up. I mean, I think Nox is in that conversation as well for good reason. When a lot of your kit matches up with what you would want from a support, and you're just like, you know what, like, we could run that. Like, you have the builds to be able to do so. Baron Samedi's been able to do it. I don't think I would hate seeing E-Shell in support, at least to test the waters. And if anyone was ever going to do it, it would be Mike that I think would be the one to pick it up. And probably the one to maybe prove that it can do something as well.
Well, it won't be E-Shell, it'll be Eset instead for the Jade Dragons, likely to round into their support role for Mike. So still going with a mage support,
Yeah.
just not the one that we were maybe hypothesizing as a possibility, and not one of the more traditional ones we've seen. It actually feels like it's been a while since we've seen not just Eset, but Eset in that support role for the Jade Dragons. But it feels like a very squishy composition. You've got maybe some ranged initiation with the Eset with that Spirit Ball, but it really feels like this is a Dragons composition that kind of falls on the weight of Nika more than anybody on this Guan Yu to be that initiator for the team.
Yeah, that's the thing I think that is really going to be strong. I mean, you're leaning a little heavily, like you said, on the Guan Yu. That being said, Eset does have some strengths to her, and honestly, when it switches to support, this is where it gets really interesting, because if you're in mid, I'm talking about Wing Gust, I'm talking about your Spirit Ball, the damage output. I think no matter what role you're in, you're obviously mentioning the ultimate. I think that's one of the best secures in the game. Even if you build tanky, which it does take away the damage. We've actually seen this in the past where some E-sets have been out-secured despite having their ult because they've built so tanky that their ult is doing no damage even at a full charge. I think the Dragons will probably not be too worried about that. I think they're still going to be able to control it, and I think in this game, at a quick cursory glance, the only thing that might steal it on the other side would probably be the Wild Hunt from a Cernunnos, which is kind of a long shot to go for a steal. So you have plenty of opportunity there, I think, to make it work. The biggest one is really just Dispel Magic, because I think we saw Dispel Magic looking really good as a support. And yeah, you're still looking, you've got a stun, that's really good for you. You've got move speed on the Wing Gust that's going to help you get out of there. But Dispel Magic, having a slow on it, having a magical prot debuff on it, which admittedly isn't helping as heavily with a lot of this team, but guess who it helps? Helps the Hebo. And that means a lot, right? You all of a sudden have this guy who's hitting a little harder. You're also getting some shields. You're causing a lot of disruption with this one ability. And I feel like with them being able to kind of lean together, you're stunning, dispelling magic, then Hebo smacks them real hard, and suddenly you've got a hyper carry in your midst that was already going to be a hyper carry, already going to be a late game good pick. And now you get that maybe even earlier in the game, stripping away some of those protections. And because they've gone for the Ram, the Marty, and the Guan, if you're building magical prots to try and counteract that, then guess who's hitting harder? The rest of the team. I feel like they've diversified their damage types really well here. The double Hunter feels really good. The style of Hunter feels really good because you got an ability and an auto-based one. So now you can really kind of switch it up. One for pushing towers, one who's still good at pushing towers but is also going to shred health bars, and then a Hebo who's just going to absolutely bomb anybody who stands in front of him.
The Jade Dragons start off the set hot with a Game 1 win, but can the Hounds bounce themselves back in Game 2 to tie things up, or are the Dragons going to put them on match point? Let's jump right into Game number 2.
Goodness, the Jade Dragons, they officially laid down the gauntlet in Game number 1. And Trelly, they'll move into Game 2 with a bit of momentum, and they'll do it with a unique composition. They've got Nika on Guan Yu solo. That's about the least unique thing about this team comp. They've got LASBRA on Hebo jungle. That feels pretty standard as well. And between Marty and Ram, it's Ram in mid, Marty in duo, and it's Mike on Eset support. What do you make the 5-stack here for the Dragons?
Well, I'm gonna quote Barracuda on this one, because I think something that he once said shines a light on what we're seeing here. They might have too many cooks in the kitchen. that is something that could come into play here. I do like the Marty ADC. I've got no problems with it. In fact, Dardez on Rama mid has been shown to work time and time again. I don't hate that either. It's really just the Eset for me that's the question mark. It has been in the meta in times, and this is not currently one of those moments. So I'm curious how Mike pilots it. That's my one and only concern with this composition is the Eset support. I'll have to see how it ends up working out. Especially up against Oathhh on the Fenrir, who takes a lot of damage in the early game here, but does have some good initiation. You pull those beads, you have a pretty easy engage later on in the game, especially if LASBRA is your target. Always a good matchup into the Hebo, the Fenrir that is, especially early on without beads, which LASBRA doesn't have. So could be a target here, but at the moment, I would like to see this duo lane just because of how much pressure Martichoras brings. He's got some great poke, he's got some great clear. Eset is only going to enhance that. It is really about these objectives. That's my main concern. You know, the Eset ult used to be just easy confirmation for any objective you decide to pull when you're building full tank. Not quite as good, but still some decent confirmation stacked out with a crushing wave, and it seems that the Jade Dragons have shown their hand with what they're trying to accomplish with a draft like this.
Eldritch Hounds, however, this is a team that has had to fight back in plenty of their sets this year. Be careful with LASBRA lurking just over the corner, though. God, so interested to see how this mid lane ROM goes. I mean, worst case scenario for me in my brain is that literally nothing happens and Dardez does the ADC thing just over in mid and sits back and farms. Best case scenario is it feeds or gets fed, because at least that's unique and provides some insight onto this style of pick. For now, safe enough. Roll away from Oathhh, and Ragnarok is there. Yes, going to the skies buys you some time, but I mean, it's telegraphed. A Ragnarok can be waiting just around the corner if you don't immediately have your roll ready to go. So there's some interesting interactions that maybe we'll see. And I like the Fenrir for Oathhh. It's a very solid pick.
Oh yeah.
It's far too quiet in game number 1. Didn't see much of him. There's really LASBRA running the show. I mean, Fenrir trailer, you figure you got to get active and got to make your presence known.
You certainly do. Are you a fan of it's quiet too quiet, or is it?
It's a bit overplayed.
That's what I'm saying, because if it's quiet, it's already too quiet.
It's already too quiet.
Exactly.
Right?
So.
Or is what they're saying, like, it's too quiet for this situation, like
considering we're at 3 minutes into game 2 of a 5-game set, it's quiet, but this is the right amount of quiet.
Sure.
I'm not going to double down. I'm not going to say it's too quiet.
Well, I can't get any more quiet, right? It's about as quiet as it gets right now.
I would argue this is the right amount of quiet for the Jade Dragons for their composition. The Eldritch Hounds do have the ability to get a bit more active just with their pressure, but I think that's why the Jade Dragons are staying under tower, right? I mean, Coast and Quig can't get more loud. They are at the tower line trying to find pressure. And the Jade Dragon said, hey, there's no Fury to fight over. There's no buffs to look at. We don't have to leave this tower if you don't force us to. So that's the current issue. But because of that, Oathhh wants to get that ultimate before he decides to get active. He wants to get Ragnarok. He does have it now, and he's heading over to the left side of the map where LASBRA is also. And remember, this Hebo doesn't have beats. He's got Blink. He's got Crushing Wave, but a stun from the Fenrir would be enough to just 100 to 0 this Hebo, essentially. Jump into ult, into Brutalize, and LASBRA says see you later, and it looks like that's the reason he's not fighting for this shield buff. He's going to go elsewhere.
Smart. You know, I feel similarly about how I feel about Dardez on this pick. I want to see something happen, just because you don't get to see it all that often. I feel the same way with Hebo, even though we do get to see a lot of Hebo, or we have seen at least a lot of it at the beginning of Season 10. The Hebo games we've seen, I feel like have severely gone one way or another. We have seen some stinkers, but we have seen some one-shot style games, and it just feels like it's one way or the other basically all the time. LASBRA would, of course, love the latter, but at risk of the former. A lot of the time you'll see Crushing Waves just be forced defensively. You never get to use that ult in a team fight, and that's what he'll be hoping to avoid throughout the course of this game. Solo lane could be quiet throughout the landing phase, Trelly. Maybe too quiet. The question ends up being, though, because remember last game, it was when Nika started to rotate out. The tier was unkillable.
He was a menace.
Are we going to get there with the Vamana? That's the question. Maybe we'll slow that down and blink towards Ducky. Oh, yeah, it's a Vamana. One of the more annoying skins in the game, if I do say so myself. And he'll be okay for now. But is this Vamana going to be deal-withable later on in the game?
There is shred for it. Yeah. You're up against double ADC and a Hebo, as we've mentioned, if you're not having a stinker performance. Candace absolutely one-shot. You vote forced into the ult. It looks like trying to dive this tower is the call with the beads. He doesn't actually use it. He holds on to the ultimate. He should be going down here. And Quig's ultimate ends up grabbing the last hit. That is going to be first blood on the left side of the map, and I thought the ult might have been enough. But man, the amount of damage that came through. Brutalize, Ragnarok. This is what Fenrir brings. And finally, Oathhh decides to get active early, pulls the beads, pulls the ult. Oathhh's going to be sitting on her tower for a little bit longer. This was one of my main concerns with this composition. Yeah, you have to sit back. You have to play a little bit reserved. But what if you never get online? What if you never get this double ADC composition out the gates? And you just get snowballed over. Fenrir brings that sort of pressure that you have to worry for. But it looks like at the moment, just going to net a first blood over to Quig, which is probably best case scenario. Oathhh gets that kill. You're looking a little worse, but Dardez?
Whoa, Dardez, he'll go up. It's a flicker forward from BennyQ. The snipes have maybe bought enough time. 2 and 3 hit, and it's LASBRA on the crushing wave that now trades out a kill, as Oathhh was close enough to kill off the Jade Dragons mid laner. A little scrap over on the right side of mid. Ends up getting an assist for both mids and a kill for both junglers.
Yep. BennyQ wanted the solo. He's got level 9. He got so much points in his abilities there. Unfortunately, the burn damage just did not kill Dardez before he went up to the sky, which means either BennyQA is going to hide there. Mike, he's going to have to use the ultimate. The pre-beat's on the stun, but here comes LASBRA. Do they have enough damage? No!
Mike lives! Mike lives! Quig can't finish off the kill this time. Neither can Oathhh. Also had to leave. One more stun might be enough. LASBRA doesn't get the knock-up. Quig use the last bit of mana to dash away. Goodness, some of these low-health targets narrowly escaping. Mike on one side, Quig and Oathhh on the other. So the pace hasn't necessarily slowed down, Trell. It's just the kills haven't fallen in the same way that they have in game number 1. Call it 1,000 gold with that extra first blood bounty for the Eldritch Hounds.
Yeah, I think Oathhh put all of his weight on the pre-beads basket there. He said, hey, if I get this full brutalize off, maybe we kill Mike. Unfortunately, Eset provides that dispel magic, provides a shield. Enough damage, enough peel comes through from the rest of the Hounds. And it just didn't seem like the damage was there. So Jade Dragons are not going to lose their support. They will lose the beads, but Mike's okay with that. He gets out with his life. BennyQ was out pressuring Dardez pretty consistently. That's what you'd expect from a Merlin up against the Rama. You just have better clear. But after that scrap in mid, it seems like Dardez is relatively close to evening that XP gap just a little bit. It's about half a level there for BennyQ. The objectives are still what I would have looked towards. That's probably where the Jade Dragons drafted this composition for anyways. They've got double Hunter. They've got 2 mages with Confirm. And of course, Nika's going to be able to heal them up. But they have to sit back for a bit because of Oathhh. They have to fear their beads. They have to fear the Ragnarok just making the fight a 5v4 before it even begins. So I want to see the Eldritch Hounds get aggressive towards these objectives. That Gold Fury could be pulled at any moment, really. Coast provides some great damage. I think that BennyQ's got the burn to back it up. It's possible they're just fearing the snipe attempts from Dardez to steal it away, or even from Vote, Death from Above, can provide some safe range damage up towards those objectives. but at the very least you're baiting in a fight, which I think the Hounds are happy to do with their positioning.
It'd be a pivotal fight the first 9 minutes of this game. Hounds are going to begin the Gold Fury. Remember, they did the same thing from behind in game 1. They are quick on the first Gold Fury of the game. The Dragons won't be here in time. I mean, there's a circle of protection in the back pocket of PolarBearMike, but won't be able to use it for steal or confirm attempts because the Dragons simply weren't there. Now, that might have been an active choice, but it's a choice that's lost them a Gold Fury for the second game in a row. And now a 2,000 gold lead for the Eldritch Hounds, though there is some counter pushing going on over in mid. Pull back a little bit of gold, a little bit of presence for the Jade Dragons, but this is the pace of game the Hounds have really been winning with all season long, it feels like. Remember, the Hounds end at 5-5, contested sets through and through, had to figure out the siege thing for themselves, but eventually able to do so. Could be a match for the Jade Dragons if this slow, more methodical pace is able to continue.
Looks like Ducky might be under a little bit of pressure here, trying to CC chain him before he goes into Colossal Fury, but Oathhh calls it out. He says, hey, there's a lot of people over here. You should watch out. Ducky says, okay, I'll just ult early. No CC chain possible. But maybe he steps up way too far. Ducky?
Yeah, wait, his ult timed out. Crushing wave just hits Ducky. One
He's
more
alive?
snipe needed, but Ducky won't get hit. That is unbelievable. A double stun from Mike. But it's a double kill from the Eldritch Hounds. The ebb and flow continues, but it's all flow for the Eldritch Hounds. Ducky, the most recent Hound to nearly die but survive. And the Jade Dragons empty-handed yet again. They have lost a Gold Fury and 2 team members in the last couple minutes.
Ducky had faith that I certainly did not. I thought LASBRA had the damage to just ult, hit him with the water hands, be on his way with a free kill. That was not the case. He knew, number 1, his team was on the way, and number 2, was hoping he did not die, and he didn't. There's not enough damage there from LASBRA. And now Pyro started up. Mike wants to go for the steal attempt. Spirit Ball's decent, but it's not enough damage. And actually the snipes from Dardez will come through too little too late. Quig picks up the Runic Bomb. And once again, the aggressive play from the Jade Dragons thwarted by the Eldritch Hounds, and the objective still going in their favor. I'm surprised to see LASBRA this far forward, though. It looked like he was looking for the backing Fenrir that was just not available. As a 1v1 happens over a duo lane. So much scrapping going on. The Jade Dragons are not happy to be down 1-4, but it doesn't seem like they have a choice because these objectives are gone, which means they can't really step up to fight any longer. At the very least, the Hounds won't go for it. We saw ult come through. Coast said, okay, death from above, later. I'm going to back up. I've got a 2-level lead. I have no reason to try and 1v1 in that situation.
Nope. The impending doom, Trilly, that I feel, I'm talking about the game here, not life, with the soul laners rotating out.
Yeah.
It's pretty heavy because, look, Nika, yeah, he's been ganked a couple times. He's only fallen 1 level behind. Can the Guan Yu change the game? Can a gank from Oathhh change things?
Oh, eclipse him.
For now, yes, but in the wrong way. LASBRA's here in time. Finally, a bit of damage, and finally, for the Dragons, a confirmed kill. After what had been really, really difficult few minutes of starting kills, not finishing them. And your top player, damage player, LASBRA, 6K to start things off. And both of the kills for the Jade Dragons. I won't call them a problem just yet, but could be a problem once those items continue to stack.
Becoming a problem.
Becoming a problem.
And in this case, the physics of it doesn't really make sense. A crushing wave
That's
just clipping.
equals MC squared right there.
Yep, that is. That's true. Ducky doesn't have to worry about the crushing wave, but
Force
will.
equals mass times acceleration? No.
He-
Acceleration equals force times mass? I forget.
Times the speed of light, square. Doesn't matter. We're sitting here, and I think that LASBRA, as you said, could become a threat. This crushing wave is an issue that at the moment has only been able to net 2 kills, but I think Oathhh loses that late game fall off, right? Where Fenrir is really sick in the early game. Yeah, he's 2-1-2, been active, being able to force so much. But LASBRA is just going to get better, whereas Oathhh will have that fall off eventually. So that's why we see them looking for these fights, trying to step up, trying to force as much as possible. They don't want to be the ones caught late game with, oh, we let Vote, Dardez, and LASBRA get to late game. Nika finally started making some rotations. Mike has so much CDR, and he's constantly silencing us. These are the kind of things the Eldritch Hounds have to worry about. And that's the reason they're going for these buff invades. They're trying to spend the majority of their time on the top 50% of the map that doesn't belong to them, just making the Jade Dragons feel uncomfortable. Primal Fury has spawned back in, though. And it seems like the solo laners aren't rotating out yet. I saw Nika start to step away, but he just used teleport. Ducky's not going to have it either, so if we do see a grouping towards this objective, it's got to be on foot. The solo laners cannot just go over magically. I guess it's not magic.
No.
The relics are just, you just use them.
We've been talking about magic. We've been talking about real science. Trelly,
We have.
we're being educational.
We're trying.
We're doing our best.
You're not just going to learn about SMITE watching this broadcast.
No, you're going to learn about the viscosity of water and the magic of teleportation. That's for sure. Now the Jade Dragons, again, maybe willingly gave up an earlier FG, but they were closer to even. Now they're 4K behind. This is just or not an FG, excuse me. It's whew, a
You're getting ahead of
GF.
yourself.
A GF, a Gold Fury is what they gave up earlier. A Primal Fury is what stands.
You know how you give up a GF?
Too much smite.
You forget to cherish her.
Oh. And the only way that happens is too much smite.
Yeah.
And relationship advice, we are on it.
We are on
In
point.
game number 2.
When there's not action, we're going to be bringing you something. And in this case, again, it's going to be the Hounds that are trying to find that action. I wouldn't be surprised. Ducky's teleport just came up, just off cooldown. He backs up, teleports over to left. That's the play I want to see. That Primal Fury is prime for the taking. And the Eldritch Hounds have quite the level lead. Ducky ticks over to 16. This Vamana is a threat, especially once he gets that item online.
We got the same level lead on both sides of the map. Coast, however, is low. Looks like Vode has won that trade. Vode is actually sending his ult forward right now. Won't get the kill. Maybe a kill for the Hounds, however, over in mid. Circle of protection, I'm not sure. Did anything for Mike, but had just gotten out of range. And an easy pickup for the Eldritch Hounds. Vode was able to win the damage trade against VaporishCoast. Won't get the tower, however. And it looks like the pick is enough for the Eldritch Hounds to immediately go to the Pyromancer. Grab the Runic Bomb. But the Jade Dragons pick up Primal Fury.
This is risky.
Yeah, they're dropping this, and they should. Have the shred with double ADC, but maybe not fast enough. Hounds, Queen pick, Queen Pyro.
Yep, I love that call from Oathhh. Recognize the circle protection's down. Said, hey, I'm going to pick you up and pull you out of the circle protection. Now it's a circle of no protection. Mike goes away. His beads are off cooldown for another 2 minutes or so. Now this Eset has a target on her head. Oath's ult already getting close to being off CDR, which means that the Hounds have an easy option to try and look for a fight once again towards this Primal Fury, and that's where they're headed. Already going for the pull. Votes going back to base. No one else even close. The objectives going overwhelmingly in favor of the Eldritch Hounds here. I've been loving this aggression. Once again, they recognize that late game might not suit them too well. They want to make sure they're getting the most out of this early, and it has been working out for them. As long as LASBRA has not been able to find any impactful ultimates, everything's been coming up Hounds so far. But translating that to a Fire Giant is a little bit scary. I think, you know, picking Mike is all well and good, but the steal potential, the burn potential, is going to be through LASBRA and, of course, the double ADC. BennyQ is getting some sweet farm, but gets 3. So much damage. Did they body block each other?
Yeah, I think so.
They couldn't do anything. He just got all the farm, threw some damage out, was fine.
That's a dream Merlin moment, too.
Yeah.
They're all just 3 sitting inside your circle. That feels just about as good as it gets. You talk about scary pulling an FG, Trelly. You know, we haven't gotten to philosophy yet.
Okay, please do.
And, you know, that feeling of discomfort is where growth happens.
That's true.
You know? And so the feeling of discomfort the Hounds might feel pulling a Fire Giant is where a gold lead may further grow
Gotta get out of that comfort
for
zone.
them. Exactly. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Michael Scott.
Yep.
That's right. I'm glad you got that one right.
I'm trying.
Oathhh over on left. He's trying for a kill on the Vote. Both got beads, well timed, and a death from above. Eldritch Hounds without much to fight over except for that Fire Giant on the map. They won't be forcing it anytime soon. And you talked about maybe a timer. Maybe the Jade Dragons, obviously this game has gone a bit out of control. They wanted to sit back and have a nice even gold lead. They've fallen pretty far behind, but they're maybe still not at a spot, Trelly, where they're trying to make these risky plays. Maybe they're still this finish line where a couple of these carries can get there in a reasonable amount of time.
I do want to highlight what Oathhh just did, because I think
Please do.
what a lot of these teams are struggling with that are not the only Warriors is trying to force a lead when there's no objectives to do so. You know, you see grouping up going for towers maybe. You see, hey, we're just going to continue farming and do nothing with this lead. Oathhh is constantly jumping in. He was able to pull the beads off of Oathhh there, didn't overcommit, didn't try and force anything, said, okay, beads, I'm gone. And I think he's going to continue to do so. That's why he's positioning here towards LASBRA. He knows, hey, I could have a nice 1v1 attempt on the right side of the map. So he's trying to chase down this Hebo. He's not able to pick him up, kill him with the Brutalize. That's as easy to get.
Crushing wave right into a wall. Unfortunate for LASBRA. Could be more onto Nika, though. Cavalry charge will be enough. Coast actually trading out somewhat effectively.
They're going to dive him.
In some serious trouble here. Double wild hunt. A root, though. A stun. The beats. The Aegis. All of it. Not enough. Everything in the world for VaporishCoast. And still he'll fall. As will a tier 2 tower on the right side of the Jade Dragons map. On the left side of our map, a tier 2 also taken from the Eldritch Hounds. So, gone tier 2 for tier 2. And pick for pick. And in an ocean of lopsided trades, the Jade Dragons have finally found one that feels somewhat even.
Yep, you could tell. The Eldritch Hounds looked at it for a second, said, can we do Fire Giant without Coast?
And then the fear struck their heart again.
Yeah, they said, okay, let's not go for a play like that. Ducky goes to make sure that left side bird doesn't drop. And it looks like just grabbing another Runic Bomb this time in Oathh's pocket is going to be the call. Trading the tier 2 towers is not the end of the world, but losing both relics on Coast and him dying is a little bit unfortunate. I don't think he was able to live regardless. Maybe didn't know exactly how much damage was coming his way. But it was not enough to try and survive that onslaught. So now Fire Giant and Gold Fury are going to be contested here on the map. The question now becomes, do the Jade Dragons want to step forward? Or are they just going to say, hey, we'll take the consolation prize, you guys get fire, we get gold because of the lead? It seems like the Jade Dragons are confident. Their group is 3. They're going for a tier 1 over on right. Everyone but Vote is feeling pretty confident, I should say. Vote's hiding in the grass. He's terrified, but
way on his own side.
The rest of the team, they're feeling pretty good about this. They're at least going to grab that tier 1 tower. I'm surprised the Hounds are taking this long to go for a pull. Again, their lead should be able to net them a little bit of farm. I guess they're probably waiting for Coast Relics. They say, hey, we got 70 seconds, then we'll step up towards the Fire Giant.
Gold Fury for the Eldritch Hounds. Looks like they'll be able to do both because there's no Fire Giant pull, no sneak attempt by the Jade Dragons. Good enough ward coverage from the Eldritch Hounds. They would have been able to spot that out anyway. Rich get richer. The Eldritch Hounds at the 21-minute mark. In a solid spot. A lot of this finally funneling through Oathhh, where Oathhh didn't necessarily make the plays happen in game 1. Finally found his footing a bit here in game 2, affecting all 6 of the kills that the Hounds have built up. And now the Hounds rotating to FG. Looks like the Jade Dragons, despite a slight grouping over on right, they're going to let this one go. We haven't seen that circle protection around any objectives. I hesitate, but it's true. You look at all the Pyros, all the Furies, it's all been Hounds all day long, and the Fire Giant is the same. Dominance continues. Fire Giant and all 5 of the Eldritch Hounds.
Vote might have caught himself out, though. Already gets jumped on. Ducky has the chase potential as well. Dardez and Nika are close, but it looks like they're just going to try and bail on him if possible. Question becomes, how close can you get to this Marty? Beautiful body blocks from Nika, and already the siege is happening on the right?
Yeah, Mike, he'll get healed up a bit. But so will the rest of the Eldritch Hounds. Ducky finally finds a kill on Vote, who's been just farming up the left side of the map for a little while. LASBRA knock up, crushing wave, but what has it done? It's forced BennyQ out of the fight. One more snipe needed, and the snipe doesn't hit. LASBRA killed off. Oh, but Nika's here. And Nika looks like he hasn't been able to find the kill, but he's finally turned it. And the rest of the siege is in. A double kill from VaporishCoast. While Ducky stomps away. And the right side Phoenix is the last bit of hope for the Jade Dragons.
I'm wondering if they go in for the end here. They've got a wave, and it's just Nika with no horse. It looks like they've got the damage, and they're feeling confident, but Nika's got good damage as well.
This game has been sent right back. This set appears to have been equalized unless Nika can make some magic happen. He's stepping in front of VaporishCoast. But Coast has damage for the Guan Yu. Or does he? It's a respawn through from Vote. But the Eldritch Hounds as 3 stay grouped on the Titan.
What?
But they will leave. They will not end the game. The Titan resets. And the Jade Dragons live on.
I mean, I think they might have had the damage to do so. Just some auto attacks would have sufficed, but it seemed like Oathhh and Quig decided to back up. They didn't want a full-on throw. You lose the right side bird, you still get plenty of pressure, and now the Titan sits at a very low amount of HP. But the Jade Dragons have been gifted a second life in this game because of the overextension, because of the confused comms. Or maybe it was just, hey, let's just go for it all. Okay, it's out. Ducky said, all right, I'm just going to get a little bit lower. I'm dead regardless. Either way.
And this game is over now. The Hounds, they've the entire lead gone.
It very well could be, Dave. It all depends on where we go from here. And I've seen time and time again with a low health Titan and the team, the Eldritch Hounds, in this case, just, you know, W key, try and get in there, get stopped at the Phoenix. And look at this. The Jade Dragons are going for a wraparound play.
Wow, this has got a lot of damage.
Who are they going to catch out? Right now it looks like Coast. But you don't want to find Ducky.
Yeah,
That's not who you're looking for. Oh, he's on a ward.
LASBRA spotted here. He's probably wondering why in the world the Eldritch Hounds have their bat camps warded when the rest of the game has been played on the other side of the map. Oathhh might have a pick here onto PolarBearMike. Insta-cancel, or insta-drop rather, of the ultimate for the Absolution actually works out really well for PolarBearMike. And that's gotten one of the big ultimates off the board. VaporishCoast, he's dropping on the other side, but Ducky will trade out effectively. And Ducky's able to stomp on Dardez, chase through, burnt down, but he takes one with him.
Last game.
BennyQ still left in this fight. Nika hoping to chase out one more, he won't. Fire minions working their way down right, and they may just end this game. Vote still stands, but won't for much longer. It's a killing spree for Ducky, and it's a Game 2 win for the Hounds.
Yeah, unfortunately there for the Jade Dragons, they were on a timer. Even if they win that fight, Vo would have had to get back and chew through some big health bars.
They're
it looks
gonna
like
get
the
there?
minions are going to do it. I don't think they're even able to show up. Mike's up at 8.
Nah.
I think the fire minions have enough damage to end before he even spawns in.
Mike might just match the minions, but the minions and Quig will get it done in game number 2, and we have guaranteed ourselves a game 4 between the Hounds and the Jade Dragons. I want to point out the Absolution. I love it. You don't have to get to see it. There was a moment there where it looked great from Mike, insta-cleanses. The Fenrir ult literally didn't matter at all.
No.
Jade Dragons, they fell far too far behind, and truly it was one of those games where the objectives just stack up against them. The Hounds just keep all the Furies, all the Pyros, all the Fires. The Dragons never found their moment to answer.
Yeah, it seemed like the Jade Dragons drafted an objective-based composition that took too long to get online,
Yep.
right? You're putting a lot of weight on double ADC. You're hoping LASBRA can bridge that gap to late game. And you hope the Eset isn't going to get farmed in the early, and I don't think any of those things really came to fruition. They found some split push potential over on left. They said, hey, if we 3-man coast, we can kill him. That's not going to bridge you to late game, unfortunately.
I'm trying to figure out an equation for how this game works. We talked a lot about magic, a lot about physics, relationships,
Yep.
philosophy we even got into
story
a
has a
little bit
build.
in that game. And that's going to be history, Charlie. We're going to look back here in a couple games and see how Game 1 and Game 2 shaped the story, maybe the literature of how the Hounds and the Dragons met in the first round of the playoffs. Game number 3, the tiebreaker, but not the finisher, coming up next.
Coming closer. Coming for you, you know. The worst thing about you answer. You laughed and said how to play it cool, and I know you won't be there to see. Just a note I made. Must have been 2 weeks later. I've been a good boy, never called you. Meet me at the club tonight. 12 o'clock. I think it was a quarter past, and there you were. You said you know I need you. Help me say the word. Ooh, I'm moving in closer. You know I'm coming for you. I'm getting ready, I'm coming, coming, coming. Ooh, baby, ooh, I'm getting even closer. I'm boy coming for you. Ready or not, I'm coming, coming, coming. Ooh, baby, coming for you. Coming for you. Yeah, coming for you. Coming, coming, coming. Ooh, baby, coming for you. Coming for you. Coming for you. Coming, coming, coming. Ooh, baby. Ooh, I'm moving in closer. You know I'm coming for you. I'm getting ready, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. Ooh, baby, ooh, I'm getting even closer. I'm boy coming for you. Ready or not, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming. Ooh, baby, coming for you. Coming for you. Coming for you. Coming, coming, coming. Yeah, baby, coming for you. Listen, baby, coming for you. Coming for you. Coming, coming, coming. Ooh, baby.
The Eldritch Hounds are going to keep this set interesting, tying it up with a win in game number 2 and keeping their chances here on the winner's bracket alive up against the Jade Dragons. And again, for all this playoffs, it's all playing towards seeding towards the Masters event. We're going to see the SPL teams there. We're going to see some SCC, but we're also going to see some SCC teams next week during our relegation. So once playoffs is done, make sure you tune in next weekend, June 10th and 11th on that Saturday, Sunday, where we'll have the SCC relegations, our top 2 SOC teams from the open circuit, and our bottom 2 SCC teams are all going to be fighting in each division. So 4 teams per, or not division, region, I should say. 4 teams fighting out for just those 2 spots in the SEC. The losers, the 2 bottom teams of those ones, well, they're going back to the SOC, and they're going to have to fight for another chance at another time. The 2 winners will then join into the SEC. So there's a possibility we'll see some new talent jump up from the SOC to the SEC, and maybe see some of those other teams that were up in the amateur circuit now drop maybe a stage lower. So make sure you're tuning in next Saturday and Sunday for those relegations. But until then, we still got to get through the playoffs right now, Goran. Game number 2 was a flip of the script where it was a game 1 dominant Dragons. This time it's a game 2 dominant Eldritch Hounds.
Yep.
And it feels like it's all pilot off the back of their jungler Oathhh. This Fenrir pick has been a crucial pick for not just himself, but for the team as a whole. And it's worked out really well for Oathhh to get the Eldritch Hounds the momentum they need here in game 2.
Yeah, there were a lot of good moments throughout that entire game, and I think Oathhh is at the center of a lot of those great moments. I mean, dominant, that is the key word to latch onto. You watch this game, you watch the beginning of it, and there's, I mean, a certain point where you're having the conversation where you're questioning whether or not what the Dragons can do to get back into this. I think that Quig had a hell of a game, right? It maybe plays further into that conversation we were having about the Aphrodite going into this one. But then when you have the setup that this team had, plus the chase down that this team had, I mean, the walls were great. Even sometimes when you weren't even thinking that's what the intent was, the Fenrir just worked out so well. Again, the way that it countered a lot of these picks and dealt with a lot of these picks. I mean, if you didn't have beads or ult, for a lot of the gods on the Dragons, that was just free pickings for the Fenrir, so that made things super easy. I also think, and you know, if it works, maybe we're having a different conversation, but Rom mid caught me off guard. The Eset definitely catches us, I think, off guard, considering what we've seen in the past. There were some merits to, I think, each of those, but not where we've been seeing them find a lot of success, so just kind of leaves you shrugging afterward. You also get to see that Vamana, at least in my mind, after a performance like that, still very much worthy of the first pick and the bans he's been receiving. I don't think we're going to see him disappear anytime soon, especially if he's still playing like that. I mean, you go, what, 6-1-6? I don't think anyone can complain, but I have to give massive shout-outs to 0-12. I think Quig was absolutely on point this game. I think it made a huge difference for them, and I think that what we got to see out of this Terra made life a lot easier. They're probably still finding success if it's another Guardian, but I think that made it so much smoother, so much simpler, and for a lot of those kills, just ease of access. I mean, you're locking a Hebo down, you're locking somebody down inside the walls, you're getting a stun, you're getting a root, something that is working so well for your team that it just the lockdown was instantly there, and then it's just free damage.
I mean, it almost makes you wonder with a performance like Quig had here in game number 2 on this Terra pick, it almost makes you wonder, why is he even picking things like the Aphrodite? If he's not finding success on those ones
give me
throughout
Terra
his
every
matchups, just give me Terra every single game. I have no complaints if he wants to try and run that for the remainder of this set. Though maybe after a performance like that, we see it banned away here in game number 3. We're ready to jump into the picks and bans for that third game of the best of 5. Don't be mistaken, it's not a best of 3 like usual. We are in best of 5s all weekend long here in the SPL playoffs, the lead up towards the Masters event. And it all comes down now in game number 3 to see who will take advantage in the set and put the other team on match point. Jade Dragons took game 1, Hounds game number 2. And as the picks and bans start to roll through, at least the first wave of bans, Horus and Serket, no surprise seeing those ones taken away. But I wonder how many change-ups the Jade Dragons will make with theirs. Last time it was 3 bans towards Quig. It was Horus, Yamoja, and Aphrodite. Wonder if we'll see that Aphrodite slot back in, or maybe some respect is thrown, or maybe even a pick taken away from Quig, trying to push him further down his list.
I'm also keeping my eyes right now open for Vamana. If he gets let through, Nika had a really good performance in game 1. Don't know if you want him on something that's going to have a game-changing performance like that again. And yeah, I think the Hounds make a pretty smart call there, just because it's dangerous otherwise. They had banned it earlier as well, as alongside Marty in the Serket. So a couple of changes from them from game 1, but I think good changes going into this zone. I'm really curious what they're going to first pick. We've seen a lot of Hachi first picks. And by a lot, I mean almost every single game sans the last one of so far each set zone, right? Now we're seeing a little bit of a shake. And J-Mac, you don't seem too happy about Afro anymore, period.
No.
I think I'm in the same boat. I don't know. It's just, it depends on the picks and the players.
Man, Quig was 0-3 on the Afro going into his game.
Yeah.
And he lost, so he's 0-4. Mike is 0-3 on the Aphrodite. Not
What you're
saying
saying
he's
is
going to
there's
make
there's
it.
a pattern.
Not saying that it's going to go 0-4, but at a point, 0.7 KDA on the pick. I have not been impressed by the mage supports from Mike so far this phase. I'd much rather see him on something like the Terra. I think it could have been maybe a good pick going up against it, but Maybe the Jade Dragons got something up cooking that I'm unaware of. Or maybe it could
maybe
just
it's
be going
mid.
to Dardez.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
could be going to Dardez.
The thing that's really weird about this team, maybe it's going to be the Hell conversation, but part 2, maybe Afro just
Electric
fits better
Boogaloo.
over there. You know, especially considering if you think about what some of the mages have built, prots get thrown in there, so it's not like you're completely sacrificing what you would get from the passive link. It does feel, I mean, almost every single one of those changes feels like a support-oriented change, though, right? And that's the thing that maybe leans it that way. Definitely flexibility, specifically because Dardez has played it in the past. We've seen a few mid laners play it in the past. It's still not the go-to, right? I mean,
No,
I don't think
not
we've seen
anymore.
it. I mean, we've seen it in solo more than we've seen it in mid, and so still has some flexibility with Fenrir. Definitely starts to create an interesting dynamic, though, right? Now you've got 2 really good carries. I think that you could link up to between the Fenrir and the Ram, both who need the survivability. And that one threw me for a pause. It's been not a while since we've seen him, but a while since it's been not adapting.
Yeah, Kuang to come along with the double hunter of the Eldritch Hounds this time. Martichoras, Hachi, and Kuang. For the Hounds, Dragons get the
Kuang.
Aphrodite, Fenrir, and Ram. So you have your hyper carry in Fenrir to maybe go alongside the Aphrodite. Taking that one away from Oathhh, probably the smartest thing for the Jade Dragons, considering how powerful a pick that one has been for Oathhh on the side of the Eldritch Hounds. Now we go into the second wave of bans. And we talk about how annoying it is to try and pick a ban against Dardez just because he plays the classic picks and then he plays the stuff that nobody else is playing. Immediate representation of that.
Yep.
Terra. Nobody aside from maybe on a rare whim big man Tings besides Dardez is really running a pick like this. So the Eldritch Hounds in the second wave maybe try and solidifying that this Aphrodite is going to be going over to Mike, or maybe trying to force it to Dardez's hands as a possibility.
Honestly, I wouldn't be upset by that. Like you said, maybe trying to force it. I doubt that they're going to be successful. I mean, looking quick glance, Merlin's still available? Like, so it's not like you're lacking in mage damage. They also just went double hunter. I mean, if you want to, you're playing AMC again or something ridiculous like that, right? So Dragons, kind of hard to predict, and for good reason. It's just because they've got very deep pockets when it comes to the god pool. I do like, however, the Dragons bans here, right? Hercules, because, again, we had mentioned that earlier. Even though he lost with it, it has been one of Ducky's better picks so far this phase. Now, actually, with that loss earlier, it's technically 50-50, so maybe it shimmies away. But at the time, it was doing better. And then, of course, the Terra, which I don't even care about the numbers for phases or anything like that, although the numbers for the phase, at a quick glance, are okay for the Terra. Nothing too crazy. It's 1 out of 3. That bumps it up in that last game, but it also looked really good, so I think that even if it was, like, just percentage-wise, if you're going off win-losses, you probably ignore that in favor of performance, and I absolutely will in this instance. That was a good Terra game. I like that they control that. Looking for, I mean, mid and support, it feels like either or is available right here. If you're looking for disruption, it might be easier to wait for your support pick, see what you're going into, but honestly, I wouldn't be upset with them waiting on their mid pick either, knowing not just where the Fenrir's going, but also, like, are you up against the Afro? Probably not, but if that's the case, then you know that opportunity, or not that opportunity, that option is available for you. So I don't mind the Hounds hanging and waiting. Also, because now that I'm looking at it again, that Marty is going mid, absolutely, so I don't even know why I'm looking for a mid laner. It's a solo laner that they're waiting for, and absolutely you want to push that down to your 10th pick. Hold on, see what you get. Get Ducky on something that is going to be well-controlled. And, I mean, at this point, you've got a roll. Afro doesn't have a jump. Fenrir has leaps. But if they go 2 more gods that don't have, like, leaps or anything like that, an Odin wouldn't be that bad.
Geb, 4th pick for the Eldritch Hounds. Go over into Quig's hands. Maybe something to try and answer to the Fenrir. You get picked up by that Ragnarok ultimate. Immediately throw him with the Stone Shield, cleanse him through there. Potential counter option, unless you're the one who's getting picked up as the Geb. But now, hover by the Jade Dragons of Eshel and Tyr. Again, we've seen Eshel once so far, played in mid by Paul, now locked in by the Jade Dragons. With a Tyr hover potential lock-in as well towards the solo lane for Tyr, or for Nika, I should say. Is Eshel towards the mid? Support? Question marks. If history is any indication, though, Aphrodite likely for PBM, and then Chel in the mid lane for Dardez. But an immediate answer back. You were talking about a 10th pick solo lane or something to play as that counter.
And I'm going to say I will this into existence. Or just Ducky recognizes the patterns that I recognize.
Maybe so.
They're real smart.
You're thinking on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I put you on the same wavelength as SPL player. That's
Look,
some props.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. Maybe like a coach with like a somewhat like with a middling influence in the picks and bans. But I mean, it's just a good pick here, right? Afro, no leap to get out of there. Fenrir, he's got 2. Who cares? Rom, no leap. Chel, no leap. Tyr, guess what? He's either using his ult to get out, which is kind of excessive considering what he has, or no leap. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities for this Odin to lock him down. Admittedly, Tyr, because of his passive, is going to be pretty, I mean, just annoying, right? Only being CC'd for such a little amount of time. But then you get the Geb into that conversation. Odin, Geb, like, it's an arena combo. Like, you're locking people down and doing your best to hit them with 2 ults at once. I think there's a lot of opportunity for it. I also think the shields are going to be very helpful, right? Help deal with the Fearless, deal with stuns or kisses from Aphrodite. So plenty of opportunities for the Hounds. And something that we've seen, admittedly, while it doesn't find a lot of success, Geb has been like just here or there every now and then. And we've seen him as like a big counter, specifically, I think, to Nox, who, you know, a lot of single target CC. I see a lot of single target CC. Geb loves that. He loves dealing with it. And so towards the late game, maybe even in that early game because of where the jungle's going to be, should be able to get a little hands-on and cause some disruption. Is also admittedly not the best in lane. He's not like there's a reason he's not your first pick. He's not like the greatest Guardian in the world, but I think the shield is really helpful. The cleanse is really helpful on that. The ult is really good for engage. The downside is we're talking forced relics, I think, at this point. Feels like you almost need a Blinka as a Geb if you want to get the engage. Rollout is very telegraphed. Sometimes it's easy to block if you get him before it gets the knockback. And so something that you can maybe absorb if you get the blink, it gives you kind of that more instantaneous fight. The other side, though, you're still talking forced relics, right? If you do not get a Phantom Shell, this Odin really gets to run away with some things, have a lot of control, and we've seen if you opt out of a Phantom Shell, how devastating that can be. You've got some auto attackers. You could theoretically knock down the wall. But is that something you want to risk? Is that something you want to commit to as opposed to just popping a Phantom Shell? If you don't get it, I mean, you're not going to need it early on. He's off in the solo lane. A lot of you aren't going to have to be worrying about that. So maybe it's a level 12 relic for the support here for Mike.
Well, it's a tie set moving into game number 3, and the winner of this will be put on match point. Who is going to take the lead in the set with the Dragons or the Hounds? Let's jump right in to game number 3.
We've seen 2 dominant performances along the way. A game 1 where the Jade Dragons felt completely in control. A game 2 where the Eldritch Hounds were much the same. So game 3s tend to slow down a bit, but here in these best of 5s, it's the game-ending ones that you've really got to look for. Wow, the widest gap in Twitch chat that we've seen so far. It's been near 50-50 and now just over 60-40 in favor of the Eldritch Hounds. Trelly, what stands out to you? What do you think is the big reason here, the big swing? Is it just what happened in game 2, or is there an obvious advantage in the draft?
I mean, I don't think it's the obvious advantage in the draft. I think chat saw the picks and bans, and there is a bit of a, I don't know how to describe it. It's not a meme, but when Mike goes magical supports that are not Guardians, usually it doesn't go as well, and he's on an Aphrodite. I don't think that's fair to put all of that on Mike. I think the Aphrodite, there's a lot of people playing it, can look very good if you have hard carries on your team, which in this case, votes on the Rama, LASBRA's going to be on this Fenrir. There is opportunities to use this Afro, but it seems like chat, more than anyone, is weighing in on that Aphrodite pick. And also probably putting a lot of faith in Oathhh, because his Kuang has been disgusting. He's been able to do some pretty great things on it, so my guess is they saw picks and bans, they saw magical support, and they saw Kuang, and that's the reason the Hounds are getting the majority of the votes, and I tend to agree. Oathhh has been looking real solid. A dash in from Vote, though, trying to get some damage onto Coast. Not every so often that you're going to get out pressure when you have this Aphrodite and you have this Rama. You're going to get pressure, that is, but Geb just does not bring the wave clear, so Quig maybe forfeiting just a little bit of pressure in the early. Coast should be just fine once the game continues and you get some more points into that banner.
Wondering how this E-Show will end up looking throughout this set as well, throughout this game. We've seen one instance of it. It was Paul, did not look great. It was simply ganked on cooldown, it felt like in that game. Oathhh might have similar ambitions. Once the bead from Dardez are gone. Once a mobile mage, a little bit of self-peel in the kit, but didn't quite matter earlier on here today. So I is still returning over to mid. Now maybe I should be on dual lane, because dual lane's getting ganked. The Jade Dragons think they've got some early damage, but Oathhh is about to round his way into lane, or is he? No, he's just going to double back for the shield buff, despite showing a little bit of face over on left early on here in this laning phase in the first couple of minutes. I mean, obviously you're trying to limit any character's snowball, right? You don't want anyone on the opposing team to snowball, but it feels like Guan is the type of pick that we've seen a couple of times. And it's maybe a bit more prone to getting out of control, which is not what the Jade Dragons want to have happen here in Game 3.
Yeah, I was not an early slanted jungler, but if you find a nice tank to just continuously gank, you can certainly build up a lead off it, and I think you're right, it could be scary. Nika actually beads is there. I was going to say, because Nika has the beads, we'll be safe against the Kuang execute for now, but it looks like forcing that out, Ducky wanted to get some more damage, or at the very least,
Where did the stun?
just wanted to, yeah, get slowed into the stun. I'm assuming he thought there was either A, he was going to be able to find a kill there because, of course, LASBRA was turning the corner, or B, was worried Oathhh was there. Regardless, those beads are down for quite some time, so that could be an opening here for Oathhh. But it's just, you don't have that much damage. You're not looking 100 to 0 until you get some itemization online. You really are hoping that you can find someone without CC immunity, get that execute, and just go up into the sky, which it doesn't seem like the opportunity is going to prevent itself anytime soon here for the Eldritch Hounds. But Ducky on this Odin can force the ult very easily. I mean, once you're in the cage, Nika's not going to love it, can't get that heal, can't get too much damage off. You're not going to be able to knock up Odin very easily. With that spear charge, you just, Fearless loses so much value in that matchup as is. But it looks like, man, Dardez returning a lot of damage in mid. I was curious as well, you highlighted it early on, this E-Shell can be very deadly given the right situations with that ultimate great end. Can just channel for such a long time as long as you're healing someone and doing damage. So if the Jade Dragons are used to playing with an E-Shell and they just position in front of Dardez, he can change a team fight. The issue that everyone has when playing this character is that self-peel is very lacking, and it is also very difficult to try and get out of sticky situations. You get some movement speed, you get a knock-up, you get a root, but it's not like you're in Anubis. You're not able to just turn immediately and just 1v1 someone. It is going to be a little bit late game when you're finding E-Shell hit that damage threshold where she's a real threat in the team fight.
I joked about Game 3 slowing down. I didn't realize I was willing it into existence. Though, I often talk about Game 3 in these sets and how important they are. One of these two teams is going to be on set point. They're going to have a couple bites at the apple to try to get there. The other team's going to have to win 2 straight. So you're looking at a totally different dynamic in a set where both games have really snowballed out of control, it's felt like. We'll be stacking up just a bit further. Transcendence for Ducky, Transcendence for BennyQ.
We haven't seen this in a while, where 5 people are stacking.
That's right, we're getting there though. We'll be there this game. Nika doesn't have beads, he's slowed, and he's executed. Oathhh finds first blood over on right. That'll help out Ducky, give him some freedom to stack up in the lane.
Yep, that's as easy as it gets. Beads are down. 8 more seconds until Nika's were available, and because of that, Ducky said, hey, I'm going to find the cage, make him ult out, and as long as that slow hits, trouble comes through. Dardez should be fine here, does not have enough damage from death from above, so BennyQ will not be able to grab a return kill, or I guess the second kill here for the Eldritch Hounds. But still, that's going to start a snowball. You give a kill over to Oathhh. Once again, 5 stacking items on the side of the Hounds. Doomorb is a bit of a cop-out, but still does build up stacks. Just once again, BennyQ's getting dope. This time doesn't have ult, though. And that's going to be gone.
Yep, simple, easy enough for LASBRA. And an important answer back by the Jade Dragons. Didn't even need to use the Undying Love, so it's BennyQ who ends up getting ganked, despite Dardez being the one who's a bit lower on the other side of mid. Feels good for the Jade Dragons to be able to answer something back here, but slowly again falling behind. This is exactly what happened in Game 2, where it felt like they were just not able to keep up and farm. Every single objective on the map went to the Eldritch Hounds. The Dragons never drew that line in the sand. Remember, it's been back-to-back games. 1 win, 1 loss, that said. But back-to-back games where the Hounds have quietly, quickly, and easily pulled the first Gold Fury of the game about 3 or so minutes from where we stand now. A trend, of course, the Jade Dragons would hope to avoid, but really the Hounds have been able to make work to their advantage at least a couple of times. Maybe eyes for Benny, maybe eyes for Quig here. Talk about some of the setup that Chel has. You're able to layer some of those abilities onto one another. Wow, LASBRA just walks face first into this. What just happened? LASBRA walks around the corner. I feel like the Jade Dragons knew where the Hounds were. LASBRA was clearly on a different page. It's the second kill of the game for the Kuang. Oh, and it could
They didn't
get
back
worse.
up?
Oh no, PolarBearMike, he's got Undying Love. Could it get forced out? Yes, for now. But this might be the 3rd kill of the game for Oathhh on the chase in, maybe a 4th. Once Vote crashes back to Earth, Oathhh is getting it done. A double kill on left, and the Kuang is on a 4-0 start.
I mean, it was a beautiful gank onto LASBRA, don't get me wrong, but the fact that the Jade Dragons stayed pushed up at tower level is what perplexes me. You know Oathh's in the sky, you know he can get across the map in an instant, and they stayed so far up. Now the Fury, you highlighted how easily it could be pulled, and it will. LASBRA wants to step forward, not going to be able to find the steal attempt, it looks like. Yeah, that goes down for free. Dardez is tickling BennyQ because the ultimate, like I said, does not do a lot of damage early on. This Chel is going to need some itemization before she starts to swing. And the gold lead certainly swinging one way, and that's in favor of the Eldritch Hounds off the back of some great initiation and a 4-0 Kuang here for Oathhh.
Well, I willed the quiet start into existence, and now I've willed what seems like an Kuang snowball into the forefront of things. Do more finish for Oathhh. 1,300 gold to go back and spend. The drop of a hat, a 3K gold lead built up for the Eldritch Hounds. I'm not going to call it 2.5. I'm calling it 3K because by the time the farm gets built up, we're going to be there. LASBRA considering a dive, but thinks twice. Big cataclysm from Quig could have sent a tower dive right back. This is always an awkward spot for a jungler. Your opponent's 4-0, you're 2 levels behind, you need to farm, but you also want to try to help out your lane. It's a weird spot to be a Fenrir right now.
Certainly is. BennyQ will take a little bit of burst, but again, get out of jail free card in that ultimate is coming off cooldown soon enough. Nika does have the ultimate. Ducky wants to find the cage, and it looks like he's not going to go for it. They were thinking about the dive, but just on different pages there. Definitely want to drop that ring of spears, but waited a little bit too long, and because of that fact, loses a free gank attempt. Nika did not have any way to get out, even with the no execution. Still would have been able to find a kill there just by nature of how much damage Oathhh is able to do. But holds onto the beads, holds onto the ult, and Tier gets to live to see another day. But I'm curious as to where Oathhh starts to get active once again. It doesn't seem like camping Nika is going to become easier now that that magical defense is getting worked on. The beads are going to be even harder to force. I think the one and done is probably all that solo lane is going to be good for. And in that case, Ducky should probably be rotating out here soon. Primal Fury is not available, but Oathhh is chasing down LASBRA over towards duo lane, knowing that shield buff is about to spawn in. Has beads, and it looks like wants to stay far away. Uses that water illusion to juke the stun. And it's going to be just fine over on this side of the map. But the Jade Dragons, they don't have an opportunity to try and fight, and they don't have to. Again, with that Fury being down, it's not the end of the world. You just want to clear your waves, find camps, and make sure that you're not losing any neutral farm that's safe. And that has been the name of the game here. It is still in the Eldritch Hounds' favor to try and get active and force fights. All the while, the Vote is able to grab a tier 1 tower. That's surprising. Coast, honestly, the entirety of this set has been getting pretty pressured over in duo lane. That's the way the Jade Dragons have been trying to play. But now the Hounds finally making an attempt on that Pyromancer. Only Dardez is here, and he doesn't seem to be in a good spot.
Dardez, gotta use the beads, but Oathhh, oh, he goes behind the ultimate, and enough healing finally and damage from an Chel ultimate. After he gets a massive shutdown, that has now brought Dardez and maybe the Jade Dragons right back into a point of contention. Yes, Pyro for the Hounds, but an incomplete kill from Oathhh. And a 4-0 shutdown. Now nearly a kill on a BennyQ. giving us some signs of life from the Jade Dragons. Big stun and big cage, but zero follow-up from the rest of the Eldritch Hounds. Means the Jade Dragons have a bit more pressure mounting in mid. Vote rotates over. He's got snipes, but no targets. Really a wonderful option right now. Oh, with the counter dive. It's in, but it's not in time from the Eldritch Hounds. The Dragons have found the first. Coast, Oathhh, they've rotated over, however, and they've made it a 2-for-1, but they've lost the tower.
Oh, what a long, drawn-out fight as well. That starts out with Oathhh getting shut down. He tries to get a kill with the water illusion, but remember, Dardez has plenty of sustain built into that kit, especially with that Great End ultimate channeled. And I'm pretty sure he got the max channel time. You get an achievement for that, 6 seconds, and I'm pretty sure he was able to grab it. Now Oathhh is able to take away a red buff and go to the right side of the map, but it is the Primal Fury that the Eldritch Hounds are still after. They're going to make sure that they get vision. BennyQ is, that is, on the Oracles. So now the Primal Fury can't be grabbed anytime soon by the Jade Dragons without them knowing. But letting Oathhh die, come back into the fight, and go ahead and grab a 5th kill is a bit surprising. I think just because of the sustain, Mike was keeping LASBRA nice and healthy. He was able to jump in pretty consistently there. And because of that, the Jade Dragons felt they could stick around just a little bit too long, but still, a shutdown is big. Dardez is sitting level 13. He's able to finish his second on the Divine Ruin. Those are the kind of things that you need. Quig, unfortunately, gets baited. Is he able to run into the CC Immunity? He is. LASBRA
goodness.
misses the ultimate. Wow. I mean, LASBRA played it perfectly. He used the Ragnarok. He went in for the bite. Didn't bite onto the Cataclysm, which is the smart call. But unfortunately, Quig was too fast. The rollout. That movement speed with the Relic Dagger was just enough to get him out of trouble.
The problem is, a lot of what was happening to the Jade Dragons in game 2. They were getting targets low, not able to kill them off. Might happen again here. Beads off of Quig. CC immunity. It's long duration. Out of Dardez. He's used the Aegis as well. He's got an Undying Love awaiting. A leap in from LASBRA. Has added a stun, but no kills again. Quig is able to live. Mike's repelled. A blink forward from Oathhh. Doesn't get the stun. Vote standing, fighting. Not delivering just yet. Both teams will limp away. Nika first to the fight.
Yep, and here comes Ducky as well. It looks like Nika will blink forward, not to find anything, but Ducky's got a lot of damage. This Odin could make a big impact, and it's BennyQ who's getting chased down, but he might be baiting for his team.
Might be. BennyQ sidesteps the damage. Killed off by PolarBearMike. A 3-man cage. Oh, goodness. It's set up for a double kill from Oathhh. Goodness, it's another. A triple from the Kuang has arrived. Coast on the killing spree. And Oathhh dies off at 4-0, and he's right back anyway with 3 more kills.
Yeah, BennyQ didn't realize it, or maybe he did, but he was setting up the perfect ambush for Oathhh and for Ducky. I mean, the damage was there from the Kuang, of course, but that cage was massive, and that's exactly what you'd expect. Big XP numbers, the levels are in favor of the Hounds, and they were able to make that play happen. Primal Fury drops. And, you know, in this case, sure, you want to give your Quadra over to the Kuang, but I think Coast probably needed that kill just a little bit more. Oathh's got 8 to his name, and Coast is able to get some extra pressure online. This Hachiman is essentially mirroring the build of Vote with the Executioner and the Transcendence. Or in this case, he wants the kin size, but the dominance is going to be built there from Vote. And you want that extra attack speed to proc your passive. That's the reason that Coast needs that extra golden pocket. He wants to do just a bit more damage.
Yep.
And he should be able to do so.
Man, this Kuang, so nimble, difficult to deal with. Also, 8 kills. Doesn't exactly help the Jade Dragons or their cause. Been able to find the backline pretty consistently. Triple kill in the last fight. We've seen a bunch of double kills so far as well. And all in the meantime, there's damage rolling for the rest of the Eldritch Hounds. Gold Fury's already been dealt with just a few moments ago. Now the Pyromancer for the Hounds as well. Unfortunately for the Jade Dragons, Trelly, it seems like we're starting to snowball our way towards an early FG. Coast attempting, and actually doing more than attempting, successfully defending left side tier 2. But Oathhh lurking. Nika has beads and has ultimate. Good, applies plenty of CC to the Kuang. And Oathhh uninterested in continuing this fight. Nika 3 levels behind.
LASBRA's coming.
4 levels behind his lane opponent and 4 levels behind the opposing jungler, is at least able to live.
Yep, LASBRA didn't make it in time, so that right side gank is all for naught. And we've seen that play before, the 3-man grouping of the Jade Dragons trying to dive coast. Remember last game, they were able to grab a kill, get both of his relics, but they lost Fire Giant for it. This time, Coast doesn't step up, he doesn't give his life over, and he loses nothing in the process. I do like the attempt there from Oathhh. I think that Nika still could be ganked if the ult is forced early enough, but Nika knows, hey, number 1, I'm fast, number 2, I'm very tanky, and I've got mobility. So should be able to run away whenever the opportunity presents itself. Now a gank towards the left side of the map. This time Oathhh is not ganking solo. Vote's trying to turn and fight. I don't know if that's the play when the Quang shows up.
Vote rolls away. Might have a bit of damage. Wow, buys enough time actually. Yeah, no, he doesn't.
Boink.
Oathhh is turned right back around in a rampage now for the Quang. And 1 more kill onto Vote. Jade Dragons, they made their way to the finals of the kickoff tournament, remember. We were wondering if we were in for a year of Dragons v Oni Warriors dominance back and forth, but it's been the case for one of the teams. Dragons were great in game number 1. Fortunately, have fallen into their old ways in games 2 and now game 3. We're starting to consider what they might need to ban a bit later on. It would take a big fumble for the Eldritch Hounds to end up dropping a game where they are 3 levels ahead. Most of the opposing players 4 levels ahead in the case of the supports. And that's your solo and your jungler and your mid laner and your ADC. At 18 minutes, Trelly, I'm wondering if we're looking at an early, maybe a pre-20-minute Fire Giant.
Certainly would be the case, and again, the Hounds have not been shy of making calls like that. That's why I was a little shocked at the grouping over on left. They went towards tier 2, decided not to go for it. And LASBRA wants to take a 1v1 versus Coast. I was going to say, I don't think he wins that trade. He was hiding so he could get the wave for free. He wasn't trying to find a fight. I mean, as long as you're able to use that EI Jutsu just to stun out the Brutalize, there's no world where Fenrir wants to take that fight. And I'm thinking probably a smart call to run away. But the Hounds, like we were saying, are posturing towards the right side of the map. Fire Giant is certainly in the realm of possibility when you've got a Hachiman with 4 full items. And Nika tries to go to the backline and ends up taking more damage than he does. That's kind of the worst case scenario for a tier, especially when you aren't able to pull the beads off of BennyQ. So the Hounds are on the right side of the map. It looks like this might be a trade. Yeah, I think so. The Jade Dragons are well aware that they are losing Fire Giant here. They're just going to let it go through and take the Fire Giant trade. All the while, Oathhh is on the left side of the map, maybe making sure that tier 2 doesn't drop. But probably, yeah, I think that goes down regardless. So the Jade Dragons grab Fury. They'll grab a tier 2 over on left. The question becomes, do the Eldritch Hounds go back and defend, or are they just going to push? So far, it looks like they're just going to push. How long did the Jade Dragons stay on the left side of the map? It looks like they're just going to grab the tower. And yeah, now the Hounds know, oh, there's 4 there? Okay, we have to go back. We're crazy, but we're not base race crazy now with this lead.
Nope. The Hounds will be able to get back in time. And it looks like the Jade Dragons will be able to get out in time as well. It's at least a win condition. The only exposed Phoenix right now is on the left side of the Eldritch Hounds base, however. I expect that to change here in just a few moments' time. Mike, or maybe it's Coast who's lurking right now. Little bit of an envelopment from the Eldritch Hounds. Nika, nimble enough. A bit different from the tier game that we saw earlier in this set. Been held completely in check. For now, we'll be able to catch up and experience the Ducky and Oathhh, but he is level 16, equal with his support and only 1 level behind the rest of his team. Just 4 levels down.
Does Mike have double LASBRA's damage? Not quite, but
2 team members of the
just
Hounds.
about.
Yeah, you might be right. Where is he? Where's the Afro? Oh.
He did build Dessa. Mike has been trying to get active. He's been trying to do a little bit
LASBRA
more
and Nika,
damage.
they're at 4 and 5,000. Mike nearly has more than both of them combined. Mike might die. Around that number, Undying Love is used, and the last bit of damage, it rolls through from Quig. But now what can the Hounds get done? I mean, you've gotten an early kill here. A little bit of damage is going to roll through from Dardez. You've gotten rid of Mike, some of the sustains the Jade Dragons have on defense. Time to siege up this mid lane Phoenix and can send your pressure to left or right.
Yep, pretty early for a Phoenix to go down with a lead like this. does come relatively unchecked. Phantom Shell, still not an option, by the way. Mike only had regular Shell and Undying Love. That's not enough to get you out of the Ring of Spears. That cage is going to be a free kill. And once it comes back up, could be a problem. Remember, Ducky has a lot of CDR. Yeah, he's already pretty close to a cage. It looks like they're not going to go forward and go in for the left side Phoenix. They have no idea that LASBRA and Dardez were over on the right side of the map. That would have been a free bird over on left, but probably smart to just back up, spend some of that gold, because the Fire Giant does fall off in about 40 seconds. It looks like Vote stepping forward. Coast is not dumb. He's like, yeah, I win this 1v1, but you're dashing forward for a reason. Probably someone else is showing up. And it looks like LASBRA didn't get the memo. He's going to have to run away here. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to catch him that easily, but yep, too much damage in the slow from BennyQ.
Man.
10 kills for Oathhh.
10 and 1 on Oathhh. He's affected 100% of the kills. 10 of those 14 are kills he's confirmed himself.
Oh, 1v1 here.
Now, oh no way, I was gonna say this is Coast we're talking about.
This is vintage Coast.
He's not taking this fight. He's got minions against him. Those last
he's
couple
terrified.
of auto attacks.
Who is this guy?
Might have made the difference. Boat does some damage. Nika's here as well, but in the meantime, a push happening. Remember, Coast is kind of keeping 2 members of the Jade Dragons occupied. At least turn into a tier 2 without Coast. Despite having BennyQ, it's still a bit slow on the towers. And with that, Fire Giant falls off. Trelly, 1. Phoenix falls. It's the 1 in mid. It's not worst case scenario for the Jade Dragons. However, I'm far pressed to see a world where they're able to step up and fight. They've got 3 stones of binding, but feels like all the CC is being applied to them.
Yep, they do not have the option.
Stones of binding or stone of bindings?
I think they have stones of binding.
Stones of binding?
There's 3 stones. Yeah,
Right.
so they have 3 individual stones for themselves, and in this case, no stones in the world are going to let you step up to the Eldritch Hounds. They're going to go to the opposite side of the map, and look at the Hounds. They're like, nah, we're not going to let you run away from us. We're going to chase you down. Who cares about Fire Giant? They're running left. All the while, Dardez and LASBRA pushing up the left side of the map, trying to go for a Phoenix. That's going to force Ducky back. And BennyQ trying to defend the Phoenix. Fire Giant has touched down, and the Hounds had that option of just saying, okay, we'll go for the Fire Giant, let you get some free gold. They actively chose to make sure the Jade Dragons couldn't catch up even a bit. Did not give them any free farm, which is the correct call in this case. You don't lose any pressure on Phoenix, you don't lose the Primal Fury, and you're still able to grab the Fire Giant uncontested, unless Vote wants to go in for some snipes. That's the only reason there's a Rama here right now. He's going for the possible attempt at a steal. But it looks like that's all he wanted to do, the possible attempt, because he's walking away just as quickly as he stepped over. And it's going to be Fire Giant into a retreat call, defend on left, and push up once again. No, the Hounds aren't doing it. Once they realize how many are over here, nope. It looks like because Ducky backed up, the Jade Dragons decide to retreat. They don't want to lose their Phoenix for free, and that is a smart call as well. Right side Bird being looked at, but the Eldritch Hounds have all the pressure.
They do, and they have. Since Oathhh really got this game going. I was wondering if that shutdown, the 4-0 shutdown, I was wondering if that was going to be a turning point in this game, and it was. It was the turning on of the angry point for Oathhh, where he then just skyrocketed up through the rest of this game. BennyQ's been there as well, 0-2-9. He's affected 9 of the 14 kills. I mean, you just can't out-confirm Oathhh with the way Oathhh is playing right now, but...
It's just not as cool. 100% kill participation. 10 of those kills finished. Unfortunately, at the highlight reel, it's going to be hard to show up besides being Oathhh.
Yep. Oathhh is getting his name in the paper after this one, that's for sure.
Local jungler decimates dragons.
Crushes Jade Dragons. That would be... What a crazy actual newspaper headline that would be. Imagine you waking up tomorrow, you're sipping your coffee, you're reading your newspaper as you do every morning, and it's like local woodsman...
It's just Oathhh with his backpack.
Right.
He always has the backpack on.
Right.
And it's just all the Hounds inside of it, which is an understatement. I do think the Hounds are playing well as a team together, but like we said, it's a highlight performance here from Oathhh.
They're playing around their hard carry.
Yep.
I mean, that's about as that's about as good of team play as you can get. The mid Phoenix respawns. And with that, the left Phoenix will be sieged successfully. Big knockups from Quig. And damage out from VaporishCoast. Ducky makes his way forward. A cage gets used. And a Phantom Shell to follow from the Jade Dragons. Mid Phoenix also crumbles. Dardez uses and stops the ultimate. Sieging still difficult. 1 minute left on the FG. The Hounds have, for now, gotten what they came for.
Yeah, I'm guessing Dardez either A, fat-fingered it, or B, was thinking there was going to be more of an engage, and unfortunately uses that ultimate for not much. The Eldritch Hounds, though, are able to heal back up. Ducky was the main issue, and he teleported back in. And now the right side Phoenix is the last target. Oathhh spots out LASBRA and is going to get some good damage, but actually returning fire onto Oathhh has been the call. And Nika dives
that's
the backline.
big. That's massive from the tier. But all it does is set up LASBRA for death. The Hounds quick enough on their disengage. Now we'll step forward. Third Phoenix of the game. Cleaned up, taken down. Mike left scurrying. Doesn't have Undying Love for now. We'll have it up here in just a moment. Vogt still has his ultimate as well. Big poke damage into the Aphrodite. 10 seconds on the FG buff. Wonder what the call is from the Hounds. Do you just hope that someone from the Jade Dragons steps too far forward? You try to end this game while LASBRA's off the map. For now, the answer is the latter. It's PolarBearMike who's stuck on the front line. The cage from Ducky corrals the Jade Dragons in. But they're Titan. It hasn't gotten taken down that heavily. It's down to half. Oathhh finds Vogt with a little bit of damage. Uh-oh, Dardez steps forward, he gets his ult back. And the snipes from Vogt are enough for now. A double kill from Mike. Or a double kill from Vogt. And 1 kill from Mike. It's the duo lane of the Dragons with 3. And it was kind of a half commitment on an end from the Eldritch Hounds. Has now made this game really uncomfortable, and the Jade Dragons might be able to get something done.
Yeah, the most they could do is a tower and then a grouping towards Fire
What
Giant.
can Oathhh get done?
I mean, that's the thing. Oathhh knows that Titan's weak, and LASBRA is the only one to defend.
Laz, yeah?
He can easily kill LASBRA. The question is, can he kill the Titan? Without minions, no. Ducky's on stall duty, and Oathhh is going to step
Oathhh is
forward.
spotted.
Someone's going to have to go back. I mean, Oathhh wins this 1v1 handedly.
Couple backs now being channeled. This might end up fizzling into nothing. Up and over goes LASBRA. Oathhh has got the damage.
Oh,
no,
quite.
he doesn't. LASBRA lives, but Nika completes his back. That would have been a big moment for Oathhh, and the Eldritch Hounds at that. Nika blinks forward. Oathhh has already used his ultimate here.
That's everything. Turn and fight.
Oathhh sends some damage right back towards Nika, but LASBRA's going to respawn. Fire minions on the Titan. For
this
now,
fire
the
call is
game
wild.
goes on. The Jade Dragons pulling the EFG. Ducky has dropped the cage. He's leapt away. Has a stun for 1 member of the Jade Dragons. It's Dardez who's caught on the Ring of Fire. He's actually taken half of his health and damage. Some sustained from Mike. Hounds will respawn. They'll get back. 3 Phoenixes down in the Jade Dragons base. Tense moments, but still the Eldritch Hounds maintain control.
Yeah, the best you get is 2 towers there. I think Oathhh is a menace, and Ducky is unkillable at this point. So trying to go for Fire Giant was just a risky call that would have never worked out. The cage slows your DPS. Everyone got stuck, and Ducky got the stun onto Dardez on the Ring of Fire. That was able to shut that call down real quick. And LASBRA, once again, does not clear waves fast enough. But here comes the Eldritch Hounds. They're just barreling down. LASBRA might get caught out. Unfortunately, jumps over the Cataclysm. He'll be fine for the time being. And I don't think that same end call is going to mess up twice. The Eldritch Hounds need to decide if they want to commit full on to the engage or look for a fight, look for picks. But 2 of these Phoenixes will be spawning here shortly, and that seems to be on the minds here of the Hounds.
It is as it should be. This has got to be the last couple of moments of this game, though this is where the Jade Dragons have been able to delay things time and time again. Such a hard team to siege against. Remember, we're talking about 4-level leads a few moments ago. Double, maybe a triple stun from Nika. That's gotten a lot of the defensive utility away from the Hounds, but death from above from BennyQ hits its mark. The Dragons, they got some death from above of their own. It's Vogt with his snipes, and he's caught out Oathhh. But still, reinitiation from Ducky. Doesn't have cage, a little bit of damage. You're still waiting for that opening. But without the 10-2 Kuang, what more can you do? Maybe just take down this left side Phoenix one more time.
The Jade Dragons can chase this.
But how low are the Eldritch Hounds? This is now very awkward. And at least, Charlie, it looks like we're going one more reset.
I mean, Nika should be able to chase down here. I guess the right side Phoenix is coming back up. You have to deal with fire minions. Unfortunate for the Jade Dragons. In a situation like that, Ducky sieges forward. He does find a cage. It looks like trying to kill Vogt is the call. He's getting weak, uses both relics, and dashes away. No one's got the damage to finish him, though.
Man, the Eldritch Hounds, so they've got the health, they've got the range. And it looks like they might have a couple more kills. Mike, gunned down by Benny. A double kill for Ducky. And now Nika and Laz hoping to save this game. You've got to get a kill. On to VaporishCoast, but Coast far too healthy and far too supportive. The Eldritch Hounds, they'll get it done without their out Kuang by the end of it, and they'll take a 2-1 lead.
Yep, the ADC said we're tired of Oathhh hogging all the highlight clips. We're going to make sure that we've got plenty of damage to come through and end this one. The Jade Dragons had some great stops, though. You got to give props to that defense. It's not easy being that far down and being able to keep your base alive. In fact, if they didn't chase out that far, we may be looking at a different endgame there. At the very least, that game would have stalled out a bit longer. But because they chased out so far, Ducky was able to find a good re-engage and a second cage in the fight. That's usually when these Odin comps start to look good. You get the Phantom Shell down with the first one, that second one wins you the game.
It sure does. Man, this is a really standout game from Oathhh, because think about early in this set, Trelly, where it's LASBRA dominating things in game 1,
Yep.
and Oathhh was very quiet. Oathhh picked things up in game 2. And now Oathhh just absolutely dominates here in game number 3. The game ends without him around, but really set the stage and allowed the rest of the Eldritch Hounds to have a good moment, have a winning moment at the end of game number 3. Game number 4, maybe a winning game 4 for the Eldritch Hounds right after this.
Hello, welcome back to the SPL Playoffs. Game number 3 between the Dragons and the Hounds goes the way of the Hounds. And usually in some of these kinds of games, you say, okay, well, one team was winning across the map over here. One team was, one solo side dominant or dual lane dominance. This one, Gore, came down to just purely Oathhh in the jungle. Starts off on, I believe, a 5-0 start this game. Dies one time in a mid lane fight. Comes back to life and immediately goes back to fight once more over on the dual lane. This just felt like the Oathhh show for the Eldritch Hounds, able to command out through game number 1 and just steamroll through the, or not game 1, game 3, and steamroll through this game.
Yeah, I think you get to see a lot out of the jungle. I mean, look, Quang gets locked in. You got to be feeling yourself, man. There's not a lot of people who are playing him. And then on top of that, there's not a people who are playing him incredibly well. And I think that this was one of those incredibly well games, right? I mean, you get a lot of good highlights from him specifically, good executes that come into it, good damage, right? You've got double hunter, so you know your team's going to do well on sieges. You've got the Odin cage. Like, you could talk about Geb, you can talk about some benefits from him, but let's be honest, like, you can lock people down into a composition where you've got a lot of damage and nowhere for them to run. And it feels like it was just going to work out well for them. Like you said, I think Oathhh just runs away with a lot of early game pressure and presence. And the thing is it's sometimes so simple looking, right? I mean, you see these plays, and I don't think there was anything crazy about what he just did. But it looked damn good, and he got a triple kill out of it, right? And it's just the way that you are getting, like, when you're hitting your autos, where you're using your ult, when you're choosing to execute versus some of the others. I think there's a lot of little small details that really push Oathh's Kuang up into the list. And then, like you said, you finally die, you finally kill him towards the end, and it doesn't even really matter that much because everybody else is super far ahead. They've got a lot of damage. They've got control of the game. You've been able to cause some speed bumps in the road overall for the Hounds, but I mean, everybody just gets to look really good. I think the Odin was just a phenomenal pick. I mean, 12 assists for good reason. Locking people down in cages, nothing you could do. Unfortunately, poor LASBRA, poor Nika, maybe get the brunt of it. Mike as well on the Afro. Just not a lot that they could lean on. The Hounds make it look good, and to a certain extent, I won't even say maybe make it look easy. I mean, they get ahead quickly in that one, and they hold on to that lead and extend it as time goes on.
And maybe at least that first blow, I mean, dialing all the way back, 20-some-odd minutes ago, when Ducky maybe forced, I don't know if force is the right word, maybe it was an error on Nika's part, but he beads in solo lane, and then just within the last 20 seconds of beads being on cooldown, Oathhh hits level 5, he rotates immediately over to solo lane, gets that first blood, and kind of gets the ball rolling for the Eldritch Hounds to start out game number 3, and then goes into a 4-0, then 5-1, and then ends the game 10-2 there, but holistically, the Eldritch Hounds looking great so far in their set and looking to maybe close this one out. Match point now in game number 4 with the Eldritch Hounds up 2-1 against the Jade Dragons. Dragons got to do a lot to fight back in up against the Hounds. And a lot of priority has been thrown towards Quig as far as his support picks have gone through, but it's now shown that he's able to bring out picks like Geb even when you try and put so much focus into him. The Jade Dragons at least continue to follow that same echo. We'll take away the Horus, and actually the Marty gets banned away this time through.
Yeah.
I gotta imagine that if you are the Dragons, you probably might be banning the Yemoja away from the Eldritch Hounds, or maybe leaving it and the Vamana up as a possibility for something to coin flip in that regard, because really, in my eyes, this Yemoja has been such a crucial pick for Quig, and it's also one that PBM has had a lot of success on as well.
It's just a good pick. I mean, look, when you talk about, I want to say, like, grandstanding over the meta, Yemoja, I think, is one of those gods that just is good. And unless they get hit with... And when I say this, I mean it, massive nerfs. And, like, it's been attempted, right? I mean, if you look at what has happened to Yemoja since release, it has been nothing but smackdowns. And so there's, like, some changes in there that are positive, but, like, you've got an ult that's longer than 2 minutes to come back up, which is one of the longest ults in the game. And it doesn't matter because the rest of your kit's really good still. You still can technically spam the stun on cooldown. You can, Riptide is an insanely good ability. Like, her kit's just really good. And because of that, she stands above and beyond, I think, in a lot of metas. Does that mean she's always going to be high priority? I think the answer to that is no, right? We've seen a lot of instances where sometimes we'll go a full 10 picks and 10 bans, and not a single Yemoja will even grace us with her presence. But at the same time, you see games where you're like, oh yeah, that god exists, right? They deserve to be up there. And I think it's just dependent on the players that are in the game. Like you said, Quig and PBM both really solid at Yemoja. And you have to be careful with a lot of those picks, because last time we were talking about the Odin, a lot of it was because of the walls. Can you imagine what a Yemoja could have done? And in that instant, maybe the cage is coming up a little more often, so the Odin gets a little more. But the lockdown that you're going to be experiencing otherwise from that support is just, it's just too much to handle.
Well, the Dragons don't want to deal with Yemoja, so they ban it away. However, it will be a Vamana instead left open, and the Eldritch Hounds will snap lock that pick for themselves as a top pick. Now the Jade Dragons hovering Hachiman and Aphrodite. I'm going to give that same sigh that I gave in game number 3, Gore. If the Aphrodite gets locked in, it's a, I don't know how I feel about it kind of pick. It didn't work out so hot in game number 3. Now 0-4 for Mike. It is a trend. If you start 0-3 and you go into another Afro, it might just be an 0-4 for you. And I was not overly impressed with it in game number 3. The Jade Dragons, though, will lock in the Hachi and the Afro here in game 4.
We will overrun our enemies.
You know, Hachi, man, I'm trying to look. I'm grasping for something.
We're trying to figure out, you know, is this kind of the worthwhile? Because with how good that Terra was for Quig, I don't think he cares that the Aphrodite got picked. He's probably happy that it is because now he doesn't feel like he needs to play it.
I certainly am, because I think again, and it's not a slight against the Aphrodite. Actually, maybe it is a slight against the Aphrodite. If the only people that we've seen consistently win on the Aphrodite are the supports who made it first seed, and one of them's on an undefeated team so far this year, then maybe it's the Aphrodite and Jake's just really good, right? Like, there's something's got to be balancing it out. I don't know what it is, but in the Hachi, look, he got a lot of good buffs. I got to give you the credit. As far as carries go, he's probably in the number 1 right now, and I don't know that it's particularly close. Although, from what I've been seeing, Ram is still pretty decent. Maybe not the matchup toe-to-toe where he's going to be perfect, but Hachi has not been a win condition every single game. And so when you start seeing things like that, you just start to wonder, really, you know, what are you picking and what is it going to give you outside of just something that's bog standard? Like, Hachi is best in slot, throw him in there. Afro, depending on the matchups, can be really solid. I like this Morrigan pick, though. Gives you the opportunity to say, you know what, you've got a Vamana, we've got a Vamana. So now we can at least match some of that energy and try to figure something out. But you go back to that Vamana game and just look at what the top 3 was. I mean, this game 2, literally all over again. Serket, Hell, admittedly the Guan Yu was let through that game. Instead, it was a Hachi ban. But then the top 3 were Vamana, Terra, Merlin. And it looked so good. And while some of the other picks I think need to, like the Fenrir, probably not going to be as solid here as it was earlier. But knowing that you've played this top 3, and as a core, it has done so much for you, I expect a lot from the Hounds here. And it just feels like they're getting away with a lot of good.
Getting away with murder almost. Vamana, Terra, Merlin, though, the top 3 for the Hounds. The Morrigan to round out the draft for at least the top 3 of the Jade Dragons.
Yeah.
And for the bans, a couple of Hunters, Heimdall and Ram, banned by the Jade Dragons. Meanwhile, Daji and Pele banned away by the Hounds. Taking a shot over towards LASBRA's God Pool, but one assassin that has made its way into plenty of hands at least for our junglers throughout the league has been this Susano. So that will go over now to LASBRA, who so far has not found success on it through the regular season in his hands, but maybe looking to turn that one around here in game number 4 up against the Eldritch Hounds in this playoffs. Meanwhile, opposite side, Eldritch Hounds going for maybe an unconventional jungler, one that we don't see too often. Nemesis being hovered at the moment for the Hounds. But given so far what we see for the Jade Dragons after we pull away from the Hachi Afro, how do you like this Morrigan-Susano combo as their next 2?
Honestly, Morrigan Susano is a combo I can get behind, only because I feel like we've seen, one, again, Morrigan gives you a lot of opportunity on the other side, but specifically the Vamana, and it technically can give you a Susano transformation. I feel like that's maybe going to be overlooked in favor of the Vamana, but still, having 2 knockups on your ultimates like that could be massive for you. Dive capabilities are going to exist there. I feel like Morrigan Susano, it gives me a lot more hope than the first 2, right? And that's just because Hachi has been kind of 50-50 and Aphrodite has been 0 so far. I do like the Nemesis, though. Cernunnos, we saw this again in Game 2. Most of these picks are pretty much the exact same. It's literally just the Fenrir that has been shifted out in favor of the Nemesis. And I like the Nemesis into this draft a lot more. If you know and are mostly certain that Morrigan is going to be transforming into a Vamana, you know that there's going to be another front line. You know the Afro is going to be tanky. You want someone who can burn through that pretty quickly, and Nemesis is going to enable you to do that. Kern, Merlin, Vamana all have decent damage on them. Nemesis has great damage as well. And the Terra, as we had mentioned earlier, was phenomenal in Game 2. And so I feel like the Hounds get back to a draft that is going to be good for them, good for their style, and admittedly from what we saw earlier, good into the Dragons. And so I think the Wukong pick tells me more or less what the Dragons are trying to do here. It's survive. It's just stay alive, withstand the onslaught, hope that Oathhh doesn't get off to a tear like he did last game, try to drag the game out a little longer, and see what you can do in some of those late-game team fights with a late-game Morrigan and a late-game Susano.
Maybe while I ramble here, I can have you find a fun stat for me to see if we can maybe get some hope with this Jade Dragons comp. Win rate with Aphrodite Susano as a combo team. I don't know if you're able to pull that one
Like
up.
this year or in general?
Let's just do this year because this is like the first real relevancy we've had
Man, you
with
said
them as a combo. All time might be a bit, but maybe a combo of Afro Susano just for this year so far, since that's when the two have gone through here. But the Eldritch Hounds have been a team that have been somewhat on an upward, at least for the beginning of this phase. Started out, and I should say at least ended this phase with a 5-5, put themselves way higher than expectations out of really any new team jumping from the SEC up into the SPL with some of the talent on here. Jade Dragons have been a bit lackluster so far in their phase, but have at least found a little bit of success in this playoff. Jade Dragons now looking for themselves to get a second win and extend this to a game number 5. Gore, I don't know if you have been able to pull a stat, but if not, at least what are your thoughts on the Jade Dragons in this game 4 up against the Hounds?
I'm going to tell you right now, they haven't had a lot of Aphrodite so far this year. That's causing a little bit of trouble for it. I mean, I think that as a combo, it looks really good most of the time. I mean, there's a reason it's kind of the memed duo. You've got a hyper carry and someone who can keep a hyper carry alive. And so what we're looking at through the past, I think, is going to be a lot of success for them. But the biggest like in theory, right? That's always in theory. The biggest issue I'm running into is I'm looking at any of these Aphrodite games, and there's hardly any wins when they've actually had that. It just feels like whatever it is, it hasn't been able to click for the Dragons.
Well, we're going to have to see if the Jade Dragons can make something click here in game number 4, because they need it if they want to extend this set further. Eldritch Hounds on match point. To do it, we'll throw it over to Dave and Trelly.
Dragons are fighting all against momentum right now because the Hounds, after a Game 1 loss, have roared back into this set. And they have simply started to dominate. Oathhh has been at the forefront of that discussion. 68%.
I told you 70. I was close.
Eldritch Hounds. You were really, really close. Jade Dragons at 32%. It has slowly slipped away from the Dragons from the minds of Twitch chat as the game and as the set has gone on. Talked a lot about what some of the reasons for that might be, Trelly. I think after a dominant Game 3 like we just saw, no surprise. Another mage support for PolarBearMike, so that is a conversation to be had for sure. We're expecting better things from this pick, or I'm hoping for better things from this pick. Also, the odd Sun Wukong pick up here for Nika. Not used to seeing it. But in a must-win Game 4, the Jade Dragons are going to it.
You gotta try something new in this case, and I think the Wukong has always been a very safe solo laner that can do damage, can one-shot carries late game if you build correctly, or I guess not correctly, if you build a certain way, which it does seem like Nika is already posturing towards with the Soul Eater star in the Bluestone. Those kind of things do make life miserable for carries if you're able to rotate out, especially from an ahead perspective, but the Morrigan, this is a pick that I've been calling for a while now. I think is heavily slept on. There's a lot of tick damage that can interrupt her, which is maybe the reason that she fell out of favor a bit. But with all these high-impact junglers like the Susano, for example, that are so heavily in the meta, it's always nice to have another hard carry on your team that can transform into another Susano at any given moment. So I think I for one, am a fan of a good portion of the Jade Dragons draft so far. I've always been vocal. I don't really like anyone on the Afro, but some people have been able to make it work. In this case, the Jade Dragons are still pretty confident about it. It's been able to get them lane pressure at the very least. Vote and PBM have been able to get some things done over in duo. Fortunately, Dardez takes a lot here. That's it.
The slow!
No, the auto
the
missed!
burn was so close. One more auto, a little bit more burn from either Oathhh or BennyQ would have been first blood, but Dardez able to survive. LASBRA in the meantime rotates over to duo.
Oathhh has blink.
Wow, they want it.
He's not going to go for it. He wants it so bad.
Oh, man, he wants to blink forward, but Dardez, now you're kind of passively sustaining up just outside of what would have been kill range. Pressure on one side of the map building for the Dragons. Pressure in mid. Might also be there for the Dragons. VaporishCoast is low on left. Blinks exchanged, beads exchanged. Oathhh low.
Oh,
Gotta be first blood. Yep. Gotta be a kill, and it is. LASBRA teleports into Oathhh after Oathhh overextended. The Jade Dragons are on the board.
Yep, that stun was perfect from Dardez, able to stall out just enough for LASBRA to retreat, give up on the kill on a BennyQ, and go in for the easy kill onto Oathhh there. Just went a little bit too hard, a little bit far for that kill, which I understand. Again, Dardez took a lot of damage. One auto attack. The enhanced auto attack from BennyQ should have killed, unfortunately missed, or was juked out, whichever you prefer. But that does mean the kill opportunity was lost, and the Jade Dragons once again get to siege forward in this duo lane. Vote wanted to find an opportunity to kill Coast, but didn't quite have that damage. And giving LASBRA first blood can be disastrous. If he starts off with the Hydras or the Transcendence, either way, the Susano, you're also buffing Dardez in the same line, because you know he could always transform into that Susano. Now you got two that are ahead, and that can be real scary to try and go for. If you just have to deal with double Typhoon or just your backline, especially while you have an Aphrodite kiss to one of them, I mean, it just becomes disastrous. So not the best look for the Hounds, but I'd rather them die on an aggressive call like that as opposed to sitting back and getting dove. So it was Oathhh sieging forward using his blink that actually caught him out. It wasn't like he was just sitting back. Right. It is showing that the Hounds want to try and get active still. They are looking for that aggressive play. They recognize they're on match point here, and they want to make it happen.
They do, but now, again, you got to keep up that pace. Remember, Oathhh has laid down the gauntlet. He's kept the pace going. Now LASBRA with an early kill. Realizes no beats for BennyQ. Needs some help from his jungler. Gets it. BennyQ was slow. LASBRA had ult, but won't be enough to commit to the fight, commit to the dive onto the Merlin. Look, Jade Dragons fans are already going to like it. You're 4 minutes in, you've seen LASBRA get beads, you've seen LASBRA get a kill, you've seen LASBRA show up on left. A welcome change to what has been happening in game 2 and 3. Wonder if Nika being on the Sun Wukong, and maybe Ducky being on the Vamana for that matter, slows down jungle presence over on right. You know, Wukong really good at getting out of things. Vamana can do the same as well. Hold that thought. BennyQ being ganked yet again. There's a slipstream on him. Just a couple of those key abilities missing in mid.
Yep, if that pull lands, maybe things go a bit differently, but BennyQ uses the flicker perfectly to make sure that dive was not going to be a success. But the Jade Dragons have shown that they are also trying to, you know, throw something at the wall, see what sticks. A pull means Dardez and LASBRA get the double Typhoon, and that's going to guarantee a kill onto BennyQ. They're still trying to find those aggressive calls, which you love to see, especially when they get that first blood. Shows that they are trying to set the pace of this game early on, which was an issue for them in game number 3, that is, because Oathhh got off to such a great start. So LASBRA's trying to keep that pace up and saying, all right, you know what, we didn't just get one and done. We are constantly trying to pull relics. So BennyQ's beads now are back up. They weren't then. Just did come up. It's probably duo lane if you want to get active, right? Merlin has, I mean, that's the issue with ganking mid has always been, and this map currently, that it's so short, right? You can get under tower pretty easily. You're not going to get caught out right in the middle unless you're overcommitting and looking for those bastions. So BennyQ can just hide underneath the tower, but duo lane is just so much longer. They've got a long way to try and run away. Of course, Quig's got 2 dashes, but Coast has no CC immunity. He could be a great target as long as you know where Oathhh is. So I do want to see LASBRA sort of head over towards the left side of the map and just try and play through this Aphrodite early on. That Undying Love means that even though you started Blink, you're not going to have to hold out for a pair of beads before you get aggressive. You have that CC immunity as long as you're near Mike at any given moment.
BennyQ just staying alive feels good for now. He's gone Chronos Pennant early in the build. Loves playing this pick. Kind of gave me a wishy-washy answer on that as well. I was like, Benny, you probably play Merlin every single game forever if you got given the choice. And he said yes, but then hesitated. And then went back and confirmed. He was like, yeah, I guess if I had to play one god forever, it'd be Merlin.
He doesn't want to be on the record for anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the phrasing, right? Because if I said you would probably play Merlin every game forever anyway, and that he wasn't ready to commit to. However, if the question is you're forced to play, you can only play one god forever and you have to, then he was like, yeah, it'd be Merlin. But like,
you even gave him the cop-out of probably.
Right.
As long as you put that in, he could always be like, oh well. I said probably, not 100%, so
right.
I didn't want to do it regardless.
Yeah, the cop-out king. It's unreal. I'd like to have some words with BennyQ.
I mean, that's the thing. He never wants to be 100%.
Well, they're not going to be 100% win rate in this set, but could be really close if the Eldritch Hounds were able to flip around the pacing of the early game of Game 4. One way to not do that is have your support get poked out and have Oathhh not be able to find the same amount of pressure. Interested to see how this Nemesis does, though, Trelly. Not a pick I've gotten to see too much of recently, though. Coast steps forward again. Beads are off. Slipstream never connected. Oh, Wild Hunt. That's well timed. And the last bit of damage from Vote's not enough either. VaporishCoast places the ultimate well, places the beads well. The three-man gank will not hit home for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, it seemed like the easier call was to just kill Quig. He was way too far up, was absolutely free. They had plenty of CC, but they wanted Coast. They pulled the beads, and that Wild Hunt was able to CC him to death, so he goes down. I guess call it picky or call it just, overindulgent. They had their option, and they did not find it. LASBRA's still here, though. Cannot pull Quig when the stones are up, so that doesn't seem like they're going to go for any kills here. But Oathhh and BennyQ were rotating over. They lost sight on Dardez, and I think that was the fear. They didn't know where the Morrigan was, and because of that, you don't want to go in. LASBRA's ult's down, but the Morrigan could have provided a second Susano, which would have been even scarier, so probably smart just to back up and provide your help to your team through a distance and say, hey, we're here if you need us, but try not to eat us. We need farm. And I think that's what Oathhh has been prioritizing. Despite falling down for first blood to LASBRA, does have that level lead. He hasn't been going for these failed ganks. He's just been Golden Blade, running to farm consistently. Has been leeching a bit from BennyQ, which is probably why he's fallen behind Dardez. But still, that will start to add up, especially if a 1v1 were to happen. I think Nemesis, if she times her shield well, is able to get a bunch of value in that 1v1, which LASBRA doesn't like, especially in the early. Later on, Susano can just one-shot you, but you have to be very careful about when you're timing that shield. But LASBRA's been spending a lot of time over here, and for good reason.
VaporishCoast pulled in by Last. Again, the Wild Hunt's good, but this time Vote has the chase down. Quig left alone. Is there any fight to really continue here? Oathhh is rotating in. He's level ahead. He looks more pretty than is anything actually functional for Quig, and he's got to be careful now. He's maybe baited himself and his jungler into the fight. Goodness, Quig danced around for a while there. Oathhh was never really ready to commit. And now it's a duo lane death. Both of them. Jade Dragons pull 2 kills and a tier 1 tower.
Yeah, the only way, hold on, I was going to say LASBRA might try and chase down again. I mean, Quig never dies there if he leaves a stone up, but unfortunately he used them all, so he got pulled back in, and then all the CC came through. He was in such a good spot, but it did seem like he was confident Oathhh could return a kill, and that obviously did not end up working out. The Jade Dragons putting themselves on the map 3-0 in the first 10 minutes. Not quiet this time, but still, they are looking towards objectives, which I like. I mean, not quite haven't going for the pull, but I've seen them sort of look towards the Gold Fury once they have about 4 on this side of the map. Like, could we go for the pull? Or should we just play it safe and try and push our lead naturally? I do think that Dardez is a bit of a ticking time bomb, though. Already level 12, has the Spear of Deso and the Doom Orb. I mean, the Morrigan really should be swinging here, especially with the link from PBM. The Aphrodite is here. This could be a nasty combo if they're able to get to the back line. And that's what the Jade Dragons want, an opportunity for Dardez and Mike to just sort of slip behind without being noticed. And that would be the end of the Hounds, at least in that team fight. And Coast is stepping forward here. Not a great idea. It has to beads. And that's free. That's just a kiss for beads. You'll take that every day of the week.
Absolutely. Coast has just been under such immense pressure this game. Feels like beads, Wild Hunt. It's been basically used immediately off of cooldown. Dardez slowed here by Oathhh. He'll transform though. Sends a bit of damage back. Typhoon knocks up the real Nemesis, but LASBRA baits himself in. Oathhh, though stunned, killed by Nika on the Sun Wukong rotation out of solo. A bit more damage from Ducky. Really disengages this fight. So we end up going jungle for jungle, and the Hounds find their first kill of the game.
They do. The Soul Laners rotated through. Doesn't seem like any objectives will be pulled. Remember, the Pyromancer's here. So it could have been done pretty easily by either one of these squads, but because you lose your junglers, you don't feel as confident. I did like the ult from Dardez there. The Nemesis was an easy solution to get some extra HP back, get some survivability, a lot of movement. That's sort of what you want in that situation when you're getting dove. You do lose the beads in the process, and now it's the Dragons' time to make a pull on this objective. Finally, the Gold Fury. Looks like it's going to go down for absolute free. No one on the side of the Hounds want to step forward. They're just going to go in for the Pyro, but LASBRA wants to go for a steal here. He doesn't have Typhoon, and that's actually enough for the Jade Dragons to grab the Fury, and it looks like they won't be able to get anything. LASBRA stalled out this Pyro long enough. But the Hounds are here. I mean, they should be able to grab this for relative free. I thought the stall in from LASBRA was going to be enough, but he might be dead.
Whoa, LASBRA's low. LASBRA lives, however. Pyromancer to the Hounds, at least. The the Hounds, not a total loss, but still things starting to trend in the wrong direction. A tower would salve the wounds just a little bit, and the Runic Bomb will finish the job. So it's Pyro immediately into Runic Bomb use over in mid. Yeah, but unfortunately it's not clean. Nika's just mounted pressure up over on right. Now pull the tier 1 and 2 levels of a lead. Similar storyline, but different sides of the coin. The Jade Dragons, the one starting to run away with things a bit here, Trelly. Not sure it's completely out of control to that point just yet. No one is that fed on the Jade Dragons, but the Eldritch Hounds have simply just not felt comfortable stepping forward, it seems.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you until I saw Nika go back and get a full Glad Shield and tier 1 Kusari there. That was a big back for this Wukong. It was level 15, 3 levels on Coast, 2 on everyone else.
The build is drastically different from Ducky's.
No, definitely different. He's going more damage, which I like to see because you have that get out of jail free card with the Somersault Cloud as long as you're able to use it at the correct time. But once we see Nika rotate out and get towards BennyQ and get towards Coast, we're going to see this build and the reason that Wukong can be played in a swishier team comps like this. I mean, so much safety. The CDR is there, but the damage is going to come through as well. But my point is Nika has not been rotating. He's 1-0. Pushed down the tier 1, has been getting free farm. He's got that 2-level lead over Ducky. But unless he rotates out, he's not going to use it. Oathhh ults, but there was never going to be a chase down anyways. That was just going to force something out. And does not force out much. Just going to be a full-on retreat call there from the Jade Dragons, who are now stepping forward. They realize that may have been an overcommitment with the Nemesis ult down. They might try and find a pick here, and here comes that Wukong. A tower dive might be in the future of the Jade Dragons.
Uh-oh, this is bad news for Oathhh. He'll heal up a little bit. So maybe a attempt from the Jade Dragons there, and more of a delayed back and annoyance for Oathhh. So we're okay for now after the Eldritch Hounds, but the slight grouping from the Jade Dragons makes you think something's afoot. VaporishCoast again is on it with these wild hunts. Just so unfortunate they've all been defensive. They've been clipping everyone right at the proper time. Ducky's rotated out of solo, and goodness, he's got damage for Dardez. Still has Colossal Fury as well. Might be the first attempt at a big fight for the Eldritch Hounds. Vote's cut on the wrong side of this engagement. He does not have his ultimate. Neither does PolarBearMike, but none of the auto attacks connecting the slow from Oathhh. And
That's enough.
not
but he's
enough.
out.
And Vote will use the Aegis, but right back in goes LASBRA. Has a pull for the Vamana. Somehow with all that, both teams completely live. Oh no, Coast. He's gonna get jumped on here. There's your damage from Nika, and finally the deadlock is broken. But back in go the rest of the Jade Dragons, as do the Eldritch Hounds. The burn from BennyQ might send the fight right back. It's actually a 2-for-1 trade, could get worse. Oathhh can chase down PBM, Quig can chase down Nika, and what has happened here? The Jade Dragons, they're fighting without their mid laner, and they might lose 4.
They weren't able to lose the rest. Nika gets out there. Beautiful chase down. I mean, Oathhh finding the perfect time to engage. Ducky was chasing down so much damage onto Vote. The slow from Oathhh, though, that's what I was waiting for. Got stunned out once, but once they were able to find it, Ducky gets out of Colossal Fury, was not able to chase down. The rest of the damage was there, the Hounds. That's a huge swing in their favor. They're able to grab the Primal Fury off respawn, essentially for free. Can they defend the Primal, or the Pyro rather, that's going to spawn in here shortly? It looks like Ducky is on defense duty. He's going to sit here and watch, because he knows the Jade Dragons want to step forward and grab it before the Hounds have the opportunity to rotate over. Dardez is nearby, but it looks like just going to get some vision down. Now the pull begins. But Ducky has Colossal Fury already back up. It's not going to be easy to make a pull with the Vamana around, and it looks like he's just trying to be annoying while his team can get here from base. They already backed up.
Whoa, burst damage on a Ducky. Colossal Fury. That'll roll through in time, and it's a double big baby battle. But Dardez, the one who's able to step forward. Ducky should be out. He should be okay. Quig steps forward with the rest of his team. Man, the Jade Dragons, they are ahead, but things just suddenly feeling like they're slipping away just a little bit. The kills haven't felt as clean. The health bars haven't looked quite as full from the Jade Dragons in the last couple of engagements. BennyQ on this Merlin, a big reason why. They started to stack the damage. It's an ultimate out of PolarBearMike. Say his name, he'll appear. A killing spree for BennyQ. And a Pyromancer for the Eldritch Hounds.
Yep, Pyro goes down for free. They know that Vogt's on the left side of the map. Doesn't seem like they're going to go in for the Fire Giant, though. Still too scary. Dardez doesn't have the ultimate. Seemed like it would have been a decent call. But Nika with the Somersault Cloud could have stalled that one out for a long time. You're right, though. These fights have been inching ever so closely in the Eldritch Hounds' favor. I mean, not even close. A 4-for-1 is massive, but still, everything has been turning up Hounds as of recent. These XP leads have been shrinking. Suddenly, Nika's not 3 levels ahead of everyone anymore. He's only 1 level ahead of Ducky. Only 1 level ahead of BennyQ. He is actually 3 levels ahead of Coast, but this Cern hasn't been farming too much. Both ADCs have had to been fighting pretty consistently, so they're going to be looking pretty rough when they try and fight up against the tanks. But at least in comparison to each other, Coast and Vogth are relatively even. Have the same style of build once again, the dominance as opposed to the Executioner, which is just a personal preference. But Coast actually dashes forward, and I can see why, because Quig and Oathhh have the cutoff.
And do they have the kill? They might. Vogt's got to use his relics. Could have been a tower dive. There was not full commitment from the Eldritch Hounds. They want to maintain what they've got for now. Just a bit of momentum building up in this game. Gold Fury, about a minute and a half. That'll be big in either completely eliminating or maybe extending back the lead that the Jade Dragons have. BennyQ the target. He's gone Chronos Pendant. Charon's Coin, Spear of the Magus. He's gone some percent pen, some cooldown. He's gotten 4 stacks on the Charon's Coin as well. That feels good here early in the game. Feels like the leads that have built up for the Jade Dragons starting to wither away a bit. Nika was in such a strong spot, but now Ducky right back to equal with him. And Oathhh has built a 2-level lead over LASBRA. Despite LASBRA's great start to this game, suddenly the Nemesis controlling things a bit. This is not to say the game is suddenly in the Hounds' favor. It's just no longer in the Jade Dragons' favor. We're right back closer to where we started at the beginning of this game. Momentum-wise, working against the Dragons, as intangible as that can be sometimes. Charlie, we should have a bit of downtime here before the Fury, before the Pyromancer spawn. You would think, but these teams have not shied away from fighting.
You would think. I saw Nika and Mike stepping forward. That is a pretty lethal combo. You already have an unkillable Wukong, and BennyQ might be in some trouble. He was able to flicker out the kiss. That's a good play. Didn't want to use the beads. But you already have an unkillable Wukong. Attach him to an Aphro, that becomes even more annoying. The slows, the constant CC immunity and the damage, the survivability. I was talking about how it would be difficult if you don't start rotating Nika out of lane early on. Remember, he was 1-0, becomes 2-0. But that's pretty much it. This lead is essentially all gone. This fed Wukong, I'm not going to say is no more. He's still, again, 3 levels over in ADC means he can get active relatively easy, but he also dies a little bit easier. And look at this. They're going for a wraparound play. They did step on a ward, though, so Benny and Quig know exactly where they are. But Gold Fury is available, so are you going to spend time chasing the Mike and Nika show, or are you going to let that Gold Fury go down? It looks like they're just going to go towards the Fury. Probably the smart call.
For now it is. What a difference. This suddenly looks like the 20-minute mark. The Eldritch Hounds are the ones quietly and confidently pulling the Fury. That is beads off of LASBRA. Now the fight brews just a bit. Ducky chasing down the backline. Dardez has to transform. Should be successful. PolarBearMike chased down once again. Wild Hunt from VaporishCoast finally used in an aggressive standpoint. That'll pick up a kill. Meanwhile on left, Quig. He's faring just as well. Ducky somehow survives on the other end of his Colossal Fury, but Vogth is able to fix that. His mounted archery comes to a close. BennyQ on the other side of this Aegis has damage, but it's Oathhh who saves the day. Just as we saw a 4-for-1 5, 6, 7 minutes ago, got a 3-for-1 now for the Eldritch Hounds.
They do. What do they get after, though? Minions are not pushed up. The Jade Dragons have done a great job of clearing out those minions at the very least. Mike and Nika are able to clear mid, so it looks like left side tower is on the mines here of the Eldritch Hounds, but Nika's rotating over. He still has good damage, and these health bars are low. BennyQ, if his back gets stopped, this could be bad. And it was. It looks like Oathhh didn't leave him, though. Thank goodness you don't leave your mid laner behind, because Nika would be able to chase him for quite some time. That bird is able to get you across the map, essentially. And it looks like that tier 1 tower will be saved. And it's actually the Dragons who are going to step up to Pyromancer. Do they have enough time to grab it before Quig shows up is the question. It looks like no, the walls are at least going to CC LASBRA.
Whoa,
and
he's
steal it
low.
away.
Oh, goodness. Quig steals it away. LASBRA Lucky that Coast wasn't here immediately because that would have been another kill for the Eldritch Hounds. Is that an immediate FG pull? No, it's just a little bit of ward coverage. Goodness. It's one of those games where suddenly things just stop going your way. You can't even confirm a Pyromancer. You started to lose kills on the left side of the map. The mid-game swing for the Eldritch Hounds has put them 5K gold in the lead. I was going to say 5.6K experience. I got them flipped. It's 4K gold, nearly 6K experience. The point is the Eldritch Hounds are ahead after being behind all game long. BennyQ's been at the front of a lot of it. So is Ducky, who's zoned out heavily in these last few fights. Vamana build starting to take shape, just as the Wukong build had earlier in this game. Fire Giant started. This one less risky. You'd love to win a fight first and make it simple for yourself. Oathhh will zone out Dardez. We've seen Vamana transformations recently.
Going.
Goodness, he's got Hasten Katana. PolarBearMike has got a solo ult himself, and it won't do anything. BennyQ
He's still alive?
lives a bit longer.
Alternate
He has an
timeline?
alternate timeline. BennyQ stands one last time.
No shot.
A double kill from Ducky in the mid laner for the Eldritch Hounds. He rumbles on in the team fight. He flickers back. Oh my! From BennyQ.
The blue stone, he's still
That is unreal.
61.
That is wild from Benny. On the verge of death, but BennyQ stares it down and fights back. The Eldritch Hounds, they might have just finalized this game mentally for the Jade Dragons.
I've seen many instances of that item getting a little bit of use, but that was absurd that BennyQ is able to live. He jukes out Dardez, his team saves him, and then the bluestone ticks from Nika. Not enough. And the 3-0 Merlin gets to live another day. The Eldritch Hounds. I mean, they've got all the luck in the world. They must have their 4-leaf clovers, just about everything. And they're going to pull this Fire Giant. PBM's the first one here. Remember, he died early. I mean, he's already back up. Nika, a little bit late to the party, but he's on his way as well. The Jade Dragons don't want to give this up for free.
My goodness. Ducky played a massive role in that fight as well. But have they done enough? The Fire Giant burning in favor of the Eldritch Hounds. We've seen one objective stolen this game. Will we see another? LASBRA's already used everything. The Hounds get Fire Giant, and the Hounds get a kill on the Las. A last fight after the Fire Giant may just end this game. And it's looking like what's happening. A rampage for Oathhh. He's made his way there yet again. And goodness, the Eldritch Hounds are taking it to the Dragons in Game 4.
But once again, the minions are gone. How about Vote? What are you still doing? Can't even get run down here. Has to be forced into the ultimate. Look at the minion waves, though. Right side, mid, and left are all pushed up. It's not easy to grab a Phoenix without a wave, but it looks like the Jade Dragons aren't going to step over the defense. Dardez is gone. So mid Phoenix at the very least will drop here. That's going to go down for free. The Eldritch Hounds will retreat. They've got a Primal Fury and a speed buff to grab on their way out. And that's just going to be free real estate at this point. They've got plenty of time to just retreat. LASBRA and Mike have just spawned back in. My goodness. I'm still amazed Benny lived. I don't know if that's already died down for you. But we
Of
haven't
course
seen
not,
it.
Trelly. It's a massive moment.
And in reality, if he died, it wouldn't have changed too much. You just would have lost the Fire Giant buff and not have a cool play. But still, the heartbreaking nature of that play probably weighing heavy on the Jade Dragons right now.
Yes.
You get the 3-0 shutdown. Nika looks 3-0. He looks a little bit better. Maybe you don't lose Dardez in the process, who has to go in to try and confirm that kill. But because of it, I mean, the Eldritch Hounds can walk up. They have taken all of the structures in the mid lane, but still tier 2s and Phoenixes to be grabbed on right and left. And it looks like Oathhh might be trying to chase down Dardez here. Does not have an ultimate target yet, but if he gets it, the Erendite will be able to show him where Dardez goes. I don't imagine you want to dive that tower, though. You know, once he turns into Vamana, you're probably not able to burn him, especially while tanking that tier 2. So right side tower is the call. All the while, Vote and LASBRA trying to get some free farm over on left. LASBRA's been level 18 for quite some time. Finally ticks over to 19. I mean, Oathhh hit level 20 like 7 minutes ago. It has been,
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a lot of farm that LASBRA's been missing out on. Still not able to upgrade that starter item.
BennyQ, 145 seconds away from alternate timeline coming back.
2 minutes.
Yeah, somebody do the math for me. 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
I'm excited.
No, yes. Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
You're right, yes.
Won't be during this fight. early untying glove out of PolarBearMike. BennyQ, though, he's finally been dove by the Jade Dragons. BennyQ has lived. Once again, the Typhoon will finally clean it up. Unstoppable as Oathhh, but Nika's returned a double kill, his own. A triple kill for Oathhh, one auto attack away. And there might be more kills to chase down. This could be a massive moment for Oathhh, a massive moment for the Eldritch Hounds rookie. If there's just a little bit more damage, Oathhh will rejoin the fight. No! Nika knocks him up and tosses him aside. It's got to have been reset by now. Divine for Oathhh nonetheless. But goodness, the Eldritch Hounds, they've turned around a miraculous Game 4. And unless Mike can make a miracle happen, which I don't think he can, the Hounds will send down the Jade Dragons, and they'll advance to play the Kings.
Not even going to give him the delayed Penta. Well, looks like he's going for it now. Mike doesn't have enough damage to try and stop this one, and the Titan will die slowly but surely. And I am amazed.
Wow.
I'm not going to say a full-on comeback because it wasn't like the game was ever about to end, but the gold deficit, certainly a big comeback to make. I mean, it was not easy for the Hounds to find those fights. It looked like Nika was 3 levels ahead of everyone on the map. This Wukong was a disaster to the carries on the side of the Hounds. But that early grouping, this Vamana became very impactful. I think that Ducky was a big threat. Once he got that hastened katana, we saw him just run down Mike.
Yep.
He wasn't even kissed anyone. You lose so much value as Afro when you're not with your team, and unfortunately, he's like, guys, I got to run away. Like, there's nothing I can do.
The best he can do is pull the Vamana away from the team at that point, it feels like, and it wasn't enough. Man, the tough road continues at this point for the Jade Dragons. Things look so promising for them at the beginning of the phase. They still have a lot of promise and a lot of talent on this team, but they have not been able to put it together. And really, Game 4 here feels a bit backbreaking for this Jade Dragons team. You'll see them at Masters nonetheless, but their seeding is going to be a bit worse now after dropping out of the early portion of this tournament. Eldritch Hounds, they continue on in the upper bracket. They'll face the Camelot Kings tomorrow. That one's a lot of fun to look forward to, but for now, the desk will break down this one.
Yeah, thank you so much. The Eldritch Hounds with a 3-1 win over the Jade Dragons to move on in the upper bracket and keep their chances of a higher seeding alive moving through this playoff tournament. And Gore, I'm just going to open with the fact that Benny may have gotten the most valuable alternate timeline I have ever seen in SMITE history. Look, 99 out of 100 times we see that item used to dive the fountain, to dive the Titan, dive the fountain, get the reset, and then win off that because you're already winning the game. The fact that he not only got the reset, lived after, and got a kill or two, that is insane.
There was a lot of game that happened there. I don't think I care about a lot of it. That play was just, I mean, it was exactly what you would have wanted, right? I mean, you're getting an impact play. He stays alive. He's baiting people in. I mean, it really does open up a lot of the conversation. But for the sake of the rest of that game, I think we got to talk about it very similarly. I mean, look at this. First highlight's not happening until 15 minutes in. It's because the first 15 minutes there it feels very Dragons-oriented. But then you start to see, I think, some of the slip-ups, right? And a lot of these moments, like the casters had said, fights aren't going completely their way. You get good damage elsewhere, though. And you start to see the kills go in their direction more often than not. And then you just get alternate timeline the hell out of your mind. I mean, there's not a lot of opportunities that you're going to have to do this. Because what is he doing right here? It is buying time more than anything, but also still getting out some damage. A lot of people soak in and tried their best to kill off BennyQ, and they were unable to. And then when they do finally proc the alternate timeline, you chase him down, he gets some more damage out there, and you commit so much to trying to kill him that you don't get anybody else, and it sets up the rest of the team for a lot of success. That moment, I think more than any, was the, I don't want to call it the nail in the coffin, but it was the start. They started digging the grave at that point, and the rest of it was just making sure that it was, 6 feet deep. That's where they left the Dragons to lie. I think it was just a really, really good play, and it led into a really controlling lead after that. 9-2-7 for Oathhh. You got to talk about the KDA. I feel bad because it gets outshined by Benny's play with the alternate timeline. I think you also have to mention it just because it goes grand scheme set-wise, but Ducky's Vamana looked absolutely insane in Game 2. And you'll never guess what, but it looked really good in Game 4 as well. Letting that through was definitely something that I think the Dragons had to struggle with when they were doing picks and bans. And unfortunately, it was a pretty easy first pick, and I think, again, it showcases that it is worth that first pick. Looks really good in both of the games that they had, and the Hounds look better because of it.
Yeah, That has been an insane performance by the Eldritch Hounds, not just through their regular season, but here in their first set of the playoffs. The big win for these guys. We talked a little bit about the Vamana that Ducky had in his couple of games, the wins that it's brought him. Now we get a chance to talk to Ducky for our post-game interview.
That's right. Oh, no, they pulled the camera out
no.
wide. I told you it was only going to be hip down here. I'll do one of these for you, Ducky.
Thank you.
I don't know what to do for you, buddy.
No,
I'm
it's all
sorry.
good. It was short.
All right, look, the set it starts off in a pretty rough way for you guys. The Jade Dragons really build momentum early in game one. Feels like everything was all Hounds from that point on. Obviously, there's some back and forth throughout the rest of it. Zone in for me, if you will. Game 4, just won it. Dragons off to an early start. Where do you feel like that game changed? Felt like you guys kind of flipped a switch. You got a 4-for-1. What'd you see, and where'd the game turn around for you guys?
I think every fight, as long as we find the Morrigan first, we win. Because they're just going to turn into me most fights. So as long as we can force it to ult and ult out, they just have one less player in the fight. So it's just 5v4.
What'd you see from Oathhh this set? Obviously, grabbed a lot of the headlines. Rookie jungler into the SPL. Now you're in your first kind of big tournament event. Talk to me a little bit about how he's kind of stepped up to the plate this year.
You're going to boost his ego. He's just last hitting. It's just Benny going in.
Okay, so we're
and he's just
taking the ego
lasting.
down a bit. It's unfair because you on the Vamana, you were wrecking the back line in a lot of those fights, right? All right, we'll turn the script around a bit. It was really you opening up all the space, right?
I mean, it does take me 10 seconds to kill an Afro. So while I'm
That's
doing
true.
that, he can just run about, last hit all the kills.
Yeah, this is
and
good.
Bump his KDA.
Yeah, good. We won't boost the Oathhh mental. Might be better for the rest of the league if we don't do that. Feels like a team though that's really starting to play with some good synergy and what was a really chaotic order side throughout phase 1. You guys were able to string some wins together. Another one of your teammates had a big play this game. BennyQ, alternate timeline, somehow stays alive. I'm trying to figure out how animated Benny is in a moment like that. How loud and how excited does he ever really get when a play like that happens?
When was that fight? Because I was just running it down. Like,
Right, got it. You're on the other side of things. You might not even know what was going on.
No, all I hear is when Benny died, he's like, "Oh, they got me, guys. 5 ults, they got me." Ooh. And then we end the game.
In a different world, though, Benny lives and maybe you're around, but you're just running down the back line, Ducky, and that's all that really matters. Excited to see you guys play later on this weekend. Congrats. We'll go back to the desk.
Thank you. Hey, the back.
Always love getting a little bit behind the scenes on something
Yeah.
like that, where it's just like, oh no, guys, they dumped everything to get a kill on me. Anyway, we'll just go ahead and win the game instead.
I just got to call him out. Egoth was right there. Like you got to make sure that his Egoth
that's
isn't
such a
too
good
big.
one.
Yeah.
Maybe that can go over on Twitter now. Maybe that can be the.
We can just like dub it over. I sound virtually the same as Dave.
Yeah, I mean, you sound very similar. Let's take a look at the bracket, because this is going to be a very long weekend of SMITE. 2 best-of-5s every single day, Thursday through Sunday, all to determine the seeding to move on towards the Masters event. With wins in 3-1 fashion by both the Gladiators and the Hounds, they move forward in the winner's bracket. Gladiators versus Leviathans tomorrow, as well as the Kings and the Hounds. Otherwise, the Styx Ferrymen and the Jade Dragons will now be awaiting the losers of those matchups there. It'll be the loser of match 3 between Gladiators Leviathans. They'll face off against the Dragons. Loser of the Kings Hounds will face off against the Ferrymen later on this weekend. So make sure you're tuning in every single day at 11 a.m. to catch these best of 5s. Again, best 5s for every single one of these matchups throughout the course of this weekend. We still got plenty to go between the playoffs and the Masters later down the road. It's going to be a long month of SMITE, more than anything, to say the least there, Roar.
A lot of SMITE, a lot of opportunity. I think we're seeing some of the teams. I mean, look, the way today went, right? Gladiators win, which is something that most people probably wouldn't have expected coming into today. Hounds win, which is maybe something you would have expected if you've been watching, but still, I think seeing these two teams that had to earn their spots in the SPL, being able to come in and find wins like this is a huge way to start off an event. It's just the first half of the year, which means there's so much SMITE, not just for this month, but for the year to play. I don't know. It gets you excited.
Some pretty big headlines from our rookie teams jumping into this year. But again, we still have plenty more SMITE to go for the weekend. So make sure you tune in at 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning as you catch day 2 of the SPL playoffs. But that's it for us today. On behalf of myself, Gore, all casters behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.